3 weeks later, the exit door opened and a total of 10 people were flung on the other side, crashing onto the sandy ground like ragdolls. Huff! Huff! Legolas and the group took deep breaths and tried to get up. Thud! Dante tried to stand up but dropped on the ground halfway. Damn! I feel like we should quit and leave the dungeon using our passes. We barely made out alive from the last one, spoke Legolas as his face was buried in the black sand of this floor. Finally, I can feel world energy again. We should be able to recover within half a day, spoke Edmund, whose clothes were tattered in many places at this point. Unlike the rest, his gear wasn't made of Invimerac skin and had very few defensive properties. So the alchemist basically looked like a dirty street beggar at this moment. Imagine if this is happening to our group. Then millions of people from the Alliance must have suffered greatly. I wonder how many died at this point, said Legolas, gathering every iota of strength as he spoke up. To his words, even someone as prideful and strong as Rudra had a gloomy expression. The past 3 weeks felt like a nightmare to them. So far, every floor they had traversed through was a unique and peculiar setting where they couldn't take advantage of being saints at all. Their journey was too hard, and even with their sheer will and freakishly strong bodies, they barely escaped death too many times. One of the floors had a -50°C temperature and an unending blizzard that froze half of their group midway. But thanks to high-grade ice resistance potions brought by Edmund, they managed to pass it without dying in a couple of days. Although Khan, Jugram, and Rudra wouldn't be affected by it, it was not the case for the rest of their crew. On a different floor, everything was made out of the ethereal fire that could even melt boulders easily. Since none of Khan's subordinates excelled in ice element, Cyril, who was a magician, became the only being who could protect the rest. Even though the previous 3 people weren't affected, the rest felt like their bodies were burning every second. They managed to cross that floor because Khan was constantly supplying Cyril with world energy that he borrowed from Rathnar's core. One of the floors was another mind-boggling experience for them, as this floor had a twisted gravity. This place had no ground but flying blocks of stones that hovered in the sky like a belt of meteors surrounding a planet. One step, you're moving forwards, but in the next step, you're flying upwards. If you walked right, you'd be falling, and when walking left, you'd go back as gravity would relocate your entire body based on these movements. If this was for a short distance, one could get familiar with the pattern and then follow particular criteria. However, the immortal dungeon wasn't so kind to them, because the stone platform they all stood on divided themselves into different blocks and sent everyone in random directions while making unpredictable movements themselves. The only way to leave these was to step on another block of the platform that touched their footing from any random direction at any moment. Even if you changed the perception of your mind, you couldn't anticipate where or when the next platform to step on would come from. And the entire group had to travel 100 kilometers of space to find the exit door like this. During those times, everyone wished that the Supreme Dungeon would be very kind just to send them a horde of monsters to kill and clear the floor, because that was easier than getting your mind fucked over and over, again and again for every single second. And finally, they came to floor 61, where they fought a legendary rank boss which was comparable to 3rd stage Saint. Thankfully, this floor did not limit their mana and world energy. The floor boss was a spectral creature that affected their souls and restricted their ability to fight as soon as they got within 10-kilometer radius. However, it couldn't have imagined that 2 of his natural enemies were part of Misthios Guild's team. Oliver used Soul Distortion skill, which was a legendary rank skill he got from Caladrius Monster, the one that nearly killed Khan and also took Cassandra's life back in Verlassen. Thanks to Shu armor and Neathbow, Oliver was able to use it without turning into his true Thunderbird legendary rank form. With Soul Distortion skill, he managed to overthrow the boss ability to oppress their souls. A soul for a soul. Oliver took away its ability, and Ronan finally managed to land the killing blow using Existence Concealment and Phase Shift skill. The former was his upgraded ability, which he got after ranking up to mythical rank and made him undetectable even by a 7th stage saint. They kept the body and the core for later use and kept their journey filled with dread and torture awaiting on every floor. And finally, they reached floor 71 after another week of travel. Phew! I guess this is it. We should get some time to rest, said Edmund. But as if jinxing their luck, All of them lost the ability to use mana and world energy again. At this moment, all of them could feel that none of their detection skills worked either. Warning! The host is in extreme danger. Suddenly, the system notification rang. Roar! Ah damn! Said Legolas as immense killing intent, far stronger and denser than anything they felt till this point targeted every single one of them. Thud! Thud! A massive seven-headed being roared 40 kilometers away as soon as they all appeared on this floor. Just the roars alone would be enough to destroy an entire city from its shockwaves alone. Boy! It's comparable to a 5th stage saint. And it's not 5 but 7-headed, each with different elements of nature. So it must be a mythical rank as well. Suddenly, even Rathnar warned Khan as soon as their gazes landed on the massive 1-kilometer-tall creature that stood far away. Give me its details, ordered Khan. System informed in Khan's mind, and the latter's expression turned extremely ugly and a bit terrified. Looks like my bad luck from the previous life is back, thought Khan as soon as he heard the details. With our ability to use mana and world energy sealed, only our physical strength can be of use. Looks like all of us are screwed big time. He spoke openly after sharing the details with his subordinates. Yes, at this rate, some of us are definitely going to die, said Omega, because the being that they were all afraid of at the moment, the mythical rank boss which killed half of the hero's party and even made Ervelyn, the hero of life, sacrifice himself, was not some pesky monster but a powerful existence only below dragons and basilisks. It was a being only heard of in myths and was greatly feared among my cultural lore even on Earth, namely, the Elder Hydra. Right now, all the newcomers on this floor looked at the 7-headed Elder Hydra with incredulous expressions after seeing its presence and rank. What the hell? Wasn't this supposed to be only a 5-headed Hydra and only at the legendary rank that was supposed to be comparable to a 3rd-stage saint? Why is it an Elder Hydra at mythical rank and possesses strength comparable to a 5th-stage saint? Asked Legolas with a bamboozled expression. Obviously, they had prior information about this boss because it was noted to be one of the hardest bosses and this floor was cleared only a few times in the past 1,000 years. Khan and the group also didn't know that the heroes party also cleared this floor a few weeks ago, albeit at a great cost. Nonetheless, the last time a group reached here was 30 years ago, and back then, those people fought a 5-headed Hydra, unlike the one that stood in front of them. When did it evolve? Is it normal for dungeon bosses to evolve? Asked Edmund, his heart filled with trepidations as he felt the immense threat because of the killing intent released by the boss. Boy, a supreme dungeon can indeed evolve itself and the floor bosses after centuries and oversaturation of world energy as per legends. But those are extremely rare cases, and even in my time, I never heard of a supreme dungeon doing so. There must be a big reason for it to happen, informed Rathnar inside Khan's mind. What does it matter? Our situation isn't going to turn out any good even if we find the reason. Should we abort and use our passes? It's been more than a month and a half at this point, so we are eligible to leave, thought Khan in his mind. Roar! Just then, the Elder Hydra, whose most of the body was submerged in the deep waters of this poisonous swamp lair, raised its heads a bit higher. All of its 20-meter-tall heads had different elements and properties. Gray head had venom, green head corrosion, red had fire, blue had ice, yellow head had lightning, the white head possessed light element, and finally, the pitch-black head had darkness element. All of these elements of nature could be sensed from the 7 heads respectively. It's like an amalgamation of all the lethal elements. No wonder it's the boss that has been cleared only 5 times in the past 1,000 years. Spoke Raiden as he took both Raijin and Kojin out of their sheaths. Venom from a mythical rank creature could easily kill even a saint of the same strength levels. Thankfully, Khan and his subordinates had legendary rank poison and venom immunity. The corrosion breath would erode their armors and weapons easily. Only Rudra among their group would be unaffected by it because of his magma element and physique, which itself had corrosive resistance after the basilisk subordinate absorbed Jormungandr's bloodline. Fire was very good for AoE damage. Ice could halt the movements of the target when hit. Lightning would simply destroy everything in its way. Light element had great piercing strength, and finally, the darkness element, which was enough to obliterate everything no matter what it was. Boy, if a mythical rank Elder Hydra is just the 71st floor boss, then imagine how strong the 81st floor boss would be. And then there are the last two bosses of this dungeon. Spoke Rathnar. We'll think about it later. First, we need to find a way to get rid of it while preserving our mana and world energy that's in our bodies. Physical strength alone won't be enough. At best, I can use Dimensional Cut 6 times given my current rank and Space Force reserves. But there will still be another head left. On top of it, it still has the terrain advantage, has a lot of range, and I sense a very strong physical defense. Even our group won't be able to one-shot this boss just with weapons and techniques alone, since mana and world energy basically runs all of our fighting skills. He said, his voice resounding in the minds of all of his subordinates. That's still useless, boy. An Elder Hydra can regrow its heads very quickly, so cutting them off won't make a difference at all. Informed Rathnar again. What? It's supposed to be a Hydra. Not the goddamn King Ghidorah. Looks like I didn't read enough about Hydra's abilities in my past life. System, tell me the weaknesses of this monster. Complained and ordered Khan. An Elder Hydra's only weakness is its heart. Reported the system. Great. If I use phase shift skill and pass through its internal organs, I can destroy its heart using Dimensional Cut. Thought Khan as he came up with a battle strategy. The system would like to inform the host that if the heart is destroyed, at least 10 kilometers of the radius will be pulverized after its destruction. Informed the system in its usual lifeless tone. Then I'll just use the dimensional void and enter true dimension to avoid getting killed by the explosion. He revealed an insidious smirk. But to throw water on his face, the system quickly informed. The system detects that because mana and world energy is sealed in this environment, the space is also sealed and the host would be unable to use Dimensional Domain or Dimensional Void skill. Only the Dimensional Cut skill can be used due to Space Force stored inside the host's body. Also, the other subordinates would be unable to use their domains as well. Reported the system. Seriously, I envy those time regressor novel protagonists now. Those bastards know everything from the future and have key information on how to kill these OP bosses easily. Wish my story was something like that. Khan cursed in his mind. At this moment, the boss started moving towards their direction on its own accord. Additionally, as if some sadistic bastard was writing Khan's story while laughing maniacally. The system gave another bad news. An Elder Hydra can relocate its heart at will, and its regeneration abilities are second only to dragons and the 5 god beasts. If the core is left intact, it can regenerate the heart as well. Reported the system again. What the hell? Stop telling me reasons why I can't kill this boss and give me actually helpful information. Would ya? Complained Khan, his countenance turning ugly. Boy, it's extremely hard to kill by normal means. But I have a plan. Said Rathnar in a stern voice. Compared to Khan, Rathnar was a war veteran who was feared by the entire world at one point. He had been in thousands of battles and many unfavorable situations, whether it was against a monster, a saint, or even the chosen heroes with divine abilities. Did you ever fight one? Queried Khan. I did, but it was only a legendary rank 5-headed Hydra, and we lost many of my capable allies back then. On top of it, you guys are short on attack skills because the world energy is inaccessible here. Let's not forget that the swamp itself is poisonous. It will not only restrict your movements but also kill you slowly. He iterated in a somber voice. All of us have a legendary rank poison immunity, and I have complete darkness and fire element immunity now. So we have 3 less things to worry about. Replied Khan instantly. But you can still be killed with lightning and light elemental attacks easily. Those 2 elements are your weaknesses, am I right? Asked the Emperor's soul to Khan. Yes. We're greatly restricted on plans and approaches we can take here. Even sacrificing some of my subordinates won't ensure a confirmed kill if I can't destroy the heart and escape at the right time. Responded Khan. To his words, Rathnar spoke in a thoughtful voice. I guess then we can't have a battle of attrition here. All of you will need to finish this fight as quickly as you can. Going all out from the start is your only option before you lot run out of your own mana and world energy. Said Rathnar, and then revealed his plan to all of them. Khan himself heard it and couldn't help but approve of this strategy. It wasn't like he couldn't come up with this plan. The problem was that he had no prior experience in fighting with a Hydra before. This world wasn't some typical light novel where Hydra were barely 5 meters tall and could be killed by level 10 protagonists just because they had the almighty plot armor. Even with the plethora of skills Khan and his group had, there were very few tactics they could use at this moment. This plan could work. But the problem is Edmund, thought Khan, and looked at the useless and helpless ally of theirs who didn't have any redeeming qualities that could help them in this face-off. We will have to reveal many of our secrets, but him being here as a witness is a huge risk, said Khan, and made a quick decision. Just then, do it, commanded Khan. Whoosh! Just then, Ronan suddenly appeared behind Edmund and attacked the human saint's head from behind. Bang! He knocked down the alchemist before the saint could even sense him, making him unconscious in the next second. Armin checked his state and confirmed that the saint was done in and wouldn't wake up for a long time. All right, boys, it's time, spoke Khan as all of them revealed their full killing intent. To bully the mythical boss. After a battle strategy was finalized and Edmund was left unconscious, Khan and the group decided to go all out right from the very start as planned by Rathnar. One after another, Khan's subordinates created a distance of 5 kilometers away from each and revealed their true forms. Boom! One after another, 8 different auras revealed by massive monstrous beings came into sight. Their overwhelming and dreadful pressure destroyed nearly 40 kilometers of the region in different directions as they encircled the Elder Hydra. For the first time, every single one of Khan's subordinates had taken their true legendary and mythical rank forms all at the same time. As for Khan himself, he activated the recently upgraded Azura mode using all the powerful bloodlines he had after nearly a year. The last time he took this form was when they fought Axel Lobthrox, aka the Hero of Fire. And now, he was using it against this incredibly powerful floor boss. Let's fight this floor boss with overwhelming power, spoke Khan to his group. Was their battle tactics to fight one enemy using 9 of them honorable and chivalrous conduct? Hell no. But the current Khan was not the one to follow any code of honor. It was a kill or be killed situation. Morals and ethics didn't mean shit if you were dead and your corpse was rotting inside a swamp. With subordinates who are no different than dungeon bosses themselves, they charged at the Elder Hydra. Be careful. All of you must stall for enough time and create an opening. He commanded and dashed. Because of his current form, Khan was the smallest, comparable to an ant against the enormous sizes of his subordinates, but he was the fastest at this moment. Boom! Jugram in his Diablo's form leaped high in the air and faced the head of the Elder Hydra with Ice Element. Blackwell in his Kronos Primordial Titan form plunged his hands inside the deep waters and soon, he created a canal while surrounding the nearby 10 kilometers of radius using the earth at the bottom of the swamp. His part was to clear terrain and restrict the Hydra as it was a sea creature with extreme agility inside water. The more water he got out through the canal, the more agility this boss would lose while he blocked all escape routes. Oliver in his massive Thunderbird form flew high in the sky, spreading his 500 meters wide wings on each side while summoning dozens of typhoons as he targeted the head with fire element. Contrary to how one would think, extremely condensed and high pressure was capable of easily cutting through the most destructive fire attacks if used correctly. Thus, Oliver was tasked to face this head on his own. Omega in his Hrodvitner form, who was now the second biggest subordinate in Khan's troop after Blackwell, faced the head with light element because he had lightning element. Khan and Cyril were weak against the light element, and the only element to overpower light was lightning element in this world. Armin had taken his Erdtree form, turning into a 4-legged massive green monster who exuded enormous life force. He engaged the Hydra's head, which let out corrosion breath that could rot everything. The reason why he was tasked with facing this head was because he had a lot of life force and can regenerate easily in a matter of seconds. Ronan in his new mythical rank form faced the head with venom that would instantly melt even another legendary rank monster. Because not only did he have immunity against it, but also his movement and ability to pass through attacks was extremely useful in the current scenario. Cyril in his legendary rank form, which was an undead with Scythe of the Reaper as weapon and 6 black wings on his back which helped him fly even without the use of world energy, engaged the head with lightning element. He had plenty of Darkness Elemental long-range attacks such as Darkness Mirage Blade Barrage skill that allowed him to attack with thousands of curved blades made with Darkness Element. He was one of the 3 people capable to face Lightning Element in the group since both Darkness and Lightning were equally matched in terms of strength and also called as the 2 strongest elements of nature. Now that the 6 heads had their respective counter-opponents engaged in a battle with them, only Khan and Rudra, both of whom had a considerable part to play as well. Khan in his Azura form left shockwaves after shockwaves as he sprinted on the surface of swamp water, as if he was using his chakra to run on it. His target was the head taking on the head with Darkness Element. Because not only was he impervious to the Darkness Element, but he also had a very useful skill to fight against creatures of this element. He summoned Lucifer in his hands and blue lightning ran across its blade wildly as Khan himself leaped close to 500 meters high in the air. Although he was a 3rd stage saint, his body was as strong as a legitimate 4th stage saint. This much distance in a single leap was like taking a normal step on the ground for him. At this moment, the Elder Hydra was enraged as it saw all of its heads being targeted on all fronts. Yet it felt no sense of danger, but rather an excitement that told him to trample on these enemies. Soon, it rose high, revealing its full 1-kilometer-tall body with snake-like heads that were 300 meters long each. All the heads shot out a beam of their respective elements and targeted their opponents that were charging from few kilometers away. Boom! Extremely dangerous elemental attacks crashed against their respective targets and destroyed the nearby terrains while wounding their opponents. Each breath was strong and wide enough to kill 10,000 enemies at once when faced directly. However, during this face-off, the Elder Hydra felt fear for the first time. A massively oppressive aura with terrifying killing intent bombarded its body, trying to set its dominance and supremacy over it. And the source of his majestic and domineering aura was Rudra, the Elder Hydra, an existence which was far stronger than the other legendary rank beings, felt a sense of dread for the first time as Rudra suddenly released his full killing intent. In the present moment, Rudra used the Dominator's aura skill, which was exclusive to himself and brought out the terrifying auras of his own dragon and basilisk bloodline combined. Compared to other subordinates, including Omega who had god-beast bloodlines, Rudra's was much more powerful and terrifying since others only had the bloodline from the descendant species and became variants of the said bloodlines. None of them were true god-beasts in the end. In his case, basilisks were one of the god-beasts while dragons were beings who stood above the god-beasts in the hierarchy of powerful species in this world, only below the demigods. Hence, his Dominator's aura was the culmination of the best of the best. If Rudra was of the same level as the Elder Hydra, a being comparable to a 5th stage saint, then this effect would be even more powerful. Nonetheless, this was currently more than enough. All the heads of the Hydra roared loudly and frantically started attacking their targets, launching massive beams after beams of highly condensed elemental attacks that could even overpower another 5th stage saint like those from the hero's party. Boom! Jugram was hit with a massive and quick frost breath that instantly froze his entire body, forming a 500-meter-tall pillar of ice while freezing the nearby 3 kilometers radius. The aim was extremely fast and accurate despite being a 5-kilometer range gap between them. And now that it stood up with its full body revealed, everyone saw its massive claws on the 4 legs and the 2 kilometers long tail at the back. The Elder Hydra was 5 kilometers long in total despite being already so big. This time, Jugram let out a massive burst of hellfire and broke through the gigantic ice pillar. Even though he was only 2nd stage saint and couldn't use his buffs because they were fighting a single enemy, he was fairly capable to stall and protect himself against the ice elemental head. Similarly, all the subordinates faced their respective opponents while using many of their attack and defense skills. Other than Omega and Rudra, everyone was having a hard time because although it looked like the 7 heads would be weak, their attack power, range, and overall destructive capabilities were on par with 4th stages on their own. Even Khan, who was using Azura mode, was barely able to match the one he was fighting. "Now go for the central head," ordered Rathnar, the main tactician of the battle. This time, Rudra's serpentine yellow eyes glowed brightly as he targeted the middle head from afar. And suddenly, the world around the Hydra started changing at a visible rate. In just a dozen seconds, the Elder Hydra felt like he was no longer on the dungeon floor, but in a completely different world where there was nothing but lava and barren lands with black soil, boulders and dozens of tall mountains. The distracted central head looked around and felt like a black figure was slithering amongst the gaps in these mountains. But soon, an ear-deafening hissing reached its ears, and the elder Hydra was horrified for the first time. A massive two-horned basilisk that was 10 times bigger than itself arose amidst these mountains and glared at the Hydra, threatening its entire existence and revealing a disdainful aura, as if it was looking down on this mythical rank floor boss. In reality, this was just one of Rudra's illusions. Rudra's lucid reality skill was even stronger than the one Khan could use. And unlike the latter, it worked even on the beings who were stronger than him. Just like Rathnar suggested, the central head seemed to be the main CPU of the Elder Hydra, which also commanded and attacked through the other heads in real time. So when Rudra put it under hypnosis, the other heads also stopped attacking. This was an advantage Heroes Party didn't have, because they were small-sized high elves and not gigantic monsters with unique powers like Khan's group. Boom! In the real world, however, Khan and his group of kaijus took this opportunity to kill the other heads in quick succession. Khan used the Dark Lightning Strike and obliterated the head he faced in a single shot. However, the heads regenerated in matter of seconds. Human, it won't last for long. Isn't he done yet? Asked Rudra, who was maintaining the illusion with great focus. Suddenly, the Hydra broke free from the illusion and regained its senses. In the end, it was a powerful being on its own. Rudra's hypnosis wasn't going to affect it for long. Master, I'm done. A stoic voice resounded in Khan's head. The Elder Hydra started rampantly attacking all the opponents as it felt great dancing, its mind telling it that something was amiss. And as part of its instinct, it tried to retreat backward. Too late! Shouted Armin in his Erdtree form. His thousands of vines, each being few hundred meters long and sturdy at the same time, restricting the Elder Hydra from moving. Omega also activated gravity imprisonment skill to stop the floor boss from moving. All in all, this entire exchange was nothing but a pure distraction. The real objective was something else. And now it was time for their gang to land the finishing blow. Boom! Dozens of sonic booms resonated in the surroundings as the Elder Hydra tried to use its world energy to break free. Still, as Khan said, it was already too late. And finally, the Elder Hydra felt a sense of impending doom as a massive shadow was cast on its own body, and it found where the life-threatening attack was coming from. A loud and majestic voice resounded from the general who hadn't engaged in direct combat with the Hydra even till this point. His words reverberated in the 10 kilometers radius as he announced the name of the finishing skill. Planetary devastation. The almighty Elder Hydra was undergoing immense pressure because of the constant attacks and barely managed to come out of Rudra's hypnosis gaze. However, right when it regained consciousness, a ginormous moon-like boulder dropped from the sky. Boom! 10 kilometers of region shook and the ground shuddered from the impact. Thousands of cracks and crevices formed as high tidal waves of swamp water rose high like a tsunami. In the end, because of Rudra's hypnosis, the Elder Hydra failed to sense that while it was fighting their group, Blackwell, who stood at the back of this enemy group despite being the biggest and tallest of them all, had been excavating the nearby region quietly and created a massive 1-kilometer-tall round orb similar to the shape of the moon in the sky using the terrain manipulation skill. As a result, the Hydra was caught off guard by the planetary devastation attack the Kronos General created for the first time. All the heads of the floor boss roared frantically and wailed in pain as this massive and incredibly leaden orb was hammered down on its body, basically squashing most of it in a single strike. To add to the pressure, Khan also used war dominance and dragon's sovereignty, making the enemy lose its rationality because of its enraged and endangered state. At this moment, the nearby terrain had been cleared of water because of the impact through the canals Blackwell created previously while he had surrounded the boss, due to which the boss also lost its mobility since it was a water creature with limited maneuverability on open ground. Every single step was planned from the very beginning. The boss was now stomped by the massive boulder, screaming and screeching in agonizing pain. It could no longer move because of losing the terrain advantage as well as destroyed internal organs. All the heads attacked the ginormous mini-planet with their elemental breaths despite in being pain. But it was simply too big to destroy in a single wave. "Now!" shouted Khan, and all the subordinates attacked with their physical bodies from all sides. This time, their goals were not the heads but something else. Omega, Jugram, Armin, Cyril, and Ronan attacked all at once and started tearing apart its massive 5 kilometers long body while evading the attacks from its heads. Rudra also slithered quickly, approaching the enemy from behind, and he bit off the entire tail while spewing his corrosive magma, making it unable to regenerate in that part. But since both of them were creatures with venom and poison immunity, the Elder Hydra wasn't dying. Yet the injuries were still lethal. Even though most of the body was regenerating at an extremely fast pace, the Elder Hydra couldn't move, and Khan's group of walking world calamities kept tearing apart its flesh and bones before the healing could even complete. "Now is your chance, boy," spoke Rathnar in a kingly manner. This was an opportunity they needed, as orchestrated by Rathnar, the first Emperor of Rakos. The biggest key factor which dictated the result of this battle was whether they could destroy the Elder Hydra's heart or not. Nonetheless, the available space for it to move the heart was simply too big. So all these steps were taken in order to force their enemy to act according to their needs instead. And now, there were only a few places where the heart could be shifted because its central body parts such as the spine, rib cage, and tail were crushed, and other parts were being torn apart by the Khan's subordinates. Since there was no way for them to easily find the heart without losing all their mana and world energy stored in their bodies during the battle. Hence, they forced the Hydra to move the heart to a safe place. A place where they wanted it to be. "Got it?" said Khan after he used Hunter's Domain, which expended half of his world energy reserves because of the restrictions placed by this floor. "All of you inside," he ordered at the same time as Lucifer was instantly covered under Space Force. Everyone else was already waiting for this command and quickly entered his shadow without wasting a single moment. Khan used the Dimensional Cut skill and slashed apart the 20-meter-wide heart of the Hydra in a single swing. As soon as the heart was cut, a massive surge of golden aura erupted. Boom! And Khan, who was still present just half a kilometer away, was obliterated into ash as the entire 10 kilometers of radius was pulverized from this nuclear bomb-like explosion. Destroying the core of a mythical rank being comparable to a 5th-stage saint was no joke. Millions of soldiers in this perimeter would die even if they successfully managed to kill the Elder Hydra. This was also the reason why nobody could easily kill this boss in 1,000 years. 5 seconds later, "Phew, barely survived," spoke Khan as he stood beside Edmund's unconscious body, which was located 20 kilometers away. Before the battle even began, he had created 2 doppelgangers, stationed and hidden perfectly using invisibility skill at set distances. As soon as he destroyed the heart, he switched places with them one after another in milliseconds at a distance of 10 kilometers each, making his escape in time using the shadow swap skill while sacrificing his fake bodies. All the subordinates came out of his shadow and heaved a sigh of relief. If there was even a single second's delay, all of them would have died with Khan. This was a very risky plan, but as a result, only blood, chunks of flesh, and crumbs of shattered bones were spread across 30 kilometers radius, none of which was theirs. Man, I could have gotten a lot of useful abilities. The entire body and core of the Elder Hydra were gone. Sadly, harvesting it was not an option for them, otherwise Khan would have used it for his rank up to a 5th-stage saint later. But wanting everything without sacrifices didn't always happen in the real world. Little did he know what Ervelin, the hero of life, achieved with the death of half of their party members and sacrificing himself. Khan and the gang achieved that without a single casualty. Although it seemed like everything was taken care of very easily with no mishaps and great struggle, all of it was possible because they planned each step very meticulously with their limited abilities and restrictions on their bodies while avoiding all the possible mistakes that could happen and get themselves killed as a result. Once again, Rathnar proved why he was superior in terms of experience and war tactics compared to Khan. Having a genius mind didn't mean you could always outsmart people with great experience. This was something the current Khan still needed to work on and accumulate over time. And finally, They passed one of the biggest hurdles that even millions of soldiers and dozens of saints couldn't accomplish with just 9 fighters. 2 hours later, Edmund finally woke up from his slumber and had a groggy expression. In the end, he was a human, someone without natural or innate regeneration abilities, so it took him time to recover despite being a saint. What the hell happened? Did I die? And where is the boss? He questioned loudly. Khan, who had turned back into Legolas again, gave a benign look as he responded with a charming smile. Gone. Reduced to atoms. Legolas informed Edmund, their ally in this expedition, that they had killed the boss and not even its body was left. But in reality, Armin had gathered all the chunks of flesh, extracted the blood and bones under Khan's orders, to remove the evidence of the fight and how they killed the boss. Legolas also told Edmund that the boss had a mental attack skill that targeted him, the weakest of the group, and made him faint. Thus, he was knocked out during the whole battle. As for how they killed it, he iterated a fake battle strategy with some truth to it, such as surrounding and overwhelming the boss with numbers. Because in the end, killing a mythical rank boss was a great feat, so they didn't want the alchemist to ask unnecessary questions that could unravel their secrets. The more oblivious Edmund was about their true battle prowess, the better. All in all, they were now free to leave this floor and progress further. Now, only 10 floors were left, and they'd be able to leave this hellish dungeon after completing their main objective of gathering the resources on the 81st floor. All of them took deep breaths and finally entered the exit door, hoping for smooth sailing from here on. 2 days later, over 500 people passed through the entrance door and appeared on the 71st floor, all of them being battle-worn and vigilant towards each other. In this group, not a single person was below Grandmaster rank, and they had close to 100 semi-saints and 25 saints. 2 of these powerful beings were 5th stage saints, 3 were 4th stage saints, while the rest were 3rd and below. However, none of them had any joyful expression but grimness in their eyes. Lager the Skjoldottir, the guildmaster of the 12 Valkyries, arrived with her group of saints. By now, the number of combatants still progressing through the immortal dungeon had greatly diminished. Damn it! Only if we had prepared more. She spoke with a constricted expression. At least half of her guild members had died during their journey so far. Although they had come with ample preparations, a supreme dungeon was not a place where everything went according to their plan. Sometimes, unprecedented and unpredictable factors arose and caused numerous casualties. Although saints were powerful combatants, not all of them were proficient when it came to protecting thousands of people at once. So recently, they had no choice but to let most of their guild members return to the outside world, as only the strongest of their forces kept traversing these dangerous floors by themselves. This was the same case for the majority of the forces, whether they were mercenaries, noble house envoys, or adventurer guilds. So only the strong-willed and powerful individuals gathered and traveled together at this point. The previous alliance no longer existed. It was everybody for themselves, and half the group held animosity towards the other half for various reasons. Yet, they could always settle the score outside, so no one had openly attacked the other party. Guildmaster, both mana and world energy is sealed on this floor, spoke the white-haired vice-guildmaster of the 12 Valkyries, who was a magician. Lager the then revealed a curious gaze as she looked around. "Where's the Hydra?" asked one of the saints from the other groups. "Wait. Looks like the floor is cleared. The Hydra must be respawning now," said an Enchanter-class saint. "Does it mean someone killed it within a week?" asked a Berserker-class saint. "Don't tell me. The Misthios Guild cleared it already? They were the ones who had a lead for half a month," said Rose Hightower of the 12 Valkyries. One after another, hundreds of these new arrivals revealed amazed expressions. Because this floor was the second most feared boss in Immortal Dungeon that was cleared only 5 times in history. And this was also one of the main reasons why all of them had decided to stick around and kill it by joining hands despite their grievances with each other. Yet, the Misthios Guild, which had only 10 saints and only 8 combat class individuals among them, somehow killed the boss on their own. Not a single person here could help but feel a sense of mental oppression, thinking how strong this guild was to achieve such a feat while they had no access to their most powerful skills. Even Lager who was 4th stage saint herself, couldn't help but feel overwhelmed and wonder, Miss Theo's guild, just who are you people? At this very moment, a different scenario came into sight on the 81st floor. A land colored in red and a massive body of a ginormous monster came into sight. Blurg, a high elf saint, spat a mouthful of blood as he adjusted his breathing and gathered all the strength in his body to stand up. He looked around the battlefield and used his senses to detect his allies. Ervelyn was barely able to stand as he used his staff to support his body while revealing a disheartened expression. Mirienne, the priestess of this group, stood a few hundred meters away, her forehead full of sweat and her breathing inconsistent. The 5th stage saint slowly walked and stopped near a body on the ground. "Farewell, my friend." He spoke and closed the eyes of a corpse. This individual was none other than the Knight Saint, who was also a 5th stage saint like the former. The heroes party had killed the 81st floor boss, achieving a feat no one had managed to do in the past 1,000 years and becoming the first people to clear this floor. However, this victory didn't bring any of them joy at the moment. During the battle, the blue-skinned elf and the blonde archer elf, both of whom were 3rd stage saints, had lost their lives. And they barely managed to achieve their goal after the 5th stage Saint Knight chose to sacrifice himself for the sake of saving his allies and creating an opportunity to kill the boss. Their group originally had 12 members, but the Elder Hydra had killed 6 of them already, and now they lost 3 more of their comrades on this floor. Who would have thought that the overbearing heroes party that was all prideful and acted almighty in front of Khan's group would be killed off not by Rudra or Khan, whom they offended publicly, but by the immortal dungeon floor bosses instead. Now only Ervelyn, Mirienne, and the elf swordsman remained. This was victory without a great price to pay. What did it cost? Everything. 3 days later, on the 91st floor of the immortal dungeon, a long-drawn battle had come to an end. Thud! Ervelyn Baslark, the hero of life, dropped to his knees and gasped. His figure was drenched in blue blood and every inch of his body was running out of strength. At this moment, they had killed a ginormous creature that existed only in myths and even made the Elder Hydra look like a weak monster that couldn't even hold a candle to it. After 15 hours of constant battle, they finally managed to kill the boss. But just like before, his face was full of helplessness and grimace. "No, uncle, please wake up," shouted Mirienne, trying her best to heal the body of the fallen comrade with whatever world energy she had left in her body as she cradled a middle-aged high elf swordsman in her arms. This was the remaining 5th stage saint of their party who fell in this battle after playing a vital role. Mirienne was crying loudly, her expression filled with pain because the swordsman was her blood relative, whom she had a strong bond with all her life. It was because he tried to save her from the dungeon boss. The saint acted like a meat shield despite his sorry state. "Step. Erfale. Do something," she pleaded with teary eyes, but Ervelyn apologetically shook his head.
"Mirienne,
"You should use the pass and leave." He spoke with a disgruntled expression. "But, no buts. Your lives were entrusted to me. Sadly, I have no way of bringing back the dead to life," he said with an indignant countenance. "In the end, a divine ability can work only for the hero and can't resurrect his allies," he iterated. "And now, there are only 10 floors left. We don't know how hard they will be since nobody came this far before. Even I'm not sure if we'd be able to survive from now on." He spoke and placed his hands on the shoulder of the fallen elf. "Although my divine abilities helped us get this far and protected many of you from time to time, this is as far as they can take us. Other than me and you, there's nobody left," he said and pulled the corpse into his space ring. "You're Princess Eleanor's best friend. What kind of a man would I be if I let the closest friend of the woman I love to die on my watch?" He spoke with a guilty expression. "Listen to me, Mirienne. Your uncle and all of our friends have sacrificed their lives for the sake of this mission and our empire." He spoke and pulled out the space ring from his finger. This was a ring where they stored the corpses of all their fallen allies till this point. to give them a proper funeral with dignity. Next, Ervelyn handed this ring to Mirienne and continued, "You should tell the outside world about what happened here. Their houses and clans should know of their sacrifice and chivalry regardless." He said and got up. "And what about you?" she asked while wiping off her tears. "I will continue," he responded in an emotionless voice. "Ervelyn, you'll die. This is no longer possible for us to progress furthermore. And there's no one left to fight with you," spoke Mirienne. Her voice was still hoarse because of her exhausted state. "And there's still the last dungeon boss we know nothing about." To her words, the hero of life replied calmly, "You don't understand, Mirienne. Now, it's my responsibility to complete the mission and make sure that their lives didn't go in vain. So going back is no longer an option." He spoke while tightly clenching his fist. "It will take me a lot of time and we might lose our last chance. But to succeed and use that rumored power in order to become the strongest hero, to protect the Elven Empire and then face the demon god in the war that's to come, it is absolutely necessary," stated the 10th hero of life. "I'd rather die trying than give up at this point," he said as a chivalrous aura emanated from his body. After giving some thought, Mirienne also spoke. "I understand. I'll go," she replied. Her state was currently the worst one in her entire life so far. And she had just also lost a family member who gave her the confidence to survive till now. So she was inherently afraid for her life as well. In the following moments, she activated a golden tabloid-like pass and her figure disappeared from the floor in mere seconds. "I must succeed," Ervelyn said after he was left alone as he walked toward the exit door to the next floor, continuing in a voice filled with unyielding resolve. "For the sake of my beloved." At this very moment on the 81st floor, the entry door flashed white and 10 people appeared. It was as expected, the Misthios Guild. After killing the Elder Hydra, luck had been on their side. Because the previous 10 floors didn't pose too much trouble for them. Using the subordinates and their unique abilities which proved helpful in particular terrain and laws of reality, they managed to reach this floor very easily compared to previous floors where they were greatly restricted. "What the hell? Why isn't the boss here?" asked Rudra as he didn't sense a single living being in 50 kilometers radius. "Then it can only mean that the boss was killed and it hasn't even been a week since it didn't respawn," said Ronan in his scorpion appearance. "Who could it be?" asked Edmund. The only answer was, "The hero's party," spoke Legolas. Their main goal was to come to this floor made of natural resources spread over around 150 kilometers. But miraculously, someone had gotten rid of their biggest headache for them. "This is a great opportunity. We're truly blessed by the god Jivenimas. We should get to work and gather these resources. Darwin and the rest, take these artifacts and help me. We can't risk the boss reappearing before we're done," said the Saint Alchemist in an exhilarated voice. The rest followed his orders and spread across the floor. But unknown to the human saint, all of them were talking telepathically through their mind link, which now had a range of 200 kilometers after Khan became a 3rd stage saint. Boy! The hero was 4th stage saint summoner. And his group was also very strong for this dungeon's level of difficulty. But if they pass this floor means that his group is the first one to cross this hurdle. In a way, they have created a path for you, iterated Rathnar. To his words, Legolas aka Khan responded with a suspicious voice. "This place has no restrictions on mana and world energy. And given that they had 2 5th stage saints, it is indeed plausible that they were strong enough to clear it. But what I'm worried about is," he said and asked in their group chat, "should we continue or not? Human, if there's no restriction on mana and world energy, we are capable enough to progress from now on, aren't we?" queried Rudra, more like suggested that they should keep traveling. "And if the hero's party is ahead, then it means that there's a chance that they have also gone to further floors. What if we come across their way? That's like taking unnecessary risks," stated Omega aka Raiden from his end while he used the artifact that sucked all the resources such as minerals and plants and objects around him like a wormhole. "Boy, don't you think something is fishy? Why would a chosen hero, The one who should be protected and guarded by the Empire's forces after your fight with the Hero of Fire. Risk his life coming to a supreme tier dungeon. He should be focusing on raising his rank while being surrounded by the strongest people of the Empire instead. Said the Peak Saint. Yeah, you're right. Besides, it's been a year, and they still haven't declared my identity or existence, as well as what happened in the Vulcan Empire to the public of Zivid Empire. For some reason, they've done a thorough job hiding those events in this empire despite having no reason to. Could it be related to the thing called Divine Key which the system told me about? Wondered Khan on his own. Wait, I have my own doubts. Do you remember that when we came here we talked about how unnaturally large numbers of dungeons are in this place? Asked Rathnar. Yeah, even your core, which became active only 100 years ago after the seal weakened, formed over a dozen dungeons at best. Replied Khan quickly. Yes. And then there's this supreme dungeon which has existed for 1,000 years. I bet on my guts that the source of all this network of dungeons must be inside this immortal dungeon. He spoke with a smug tone as he revealed his hunch and made a proposal. Let's find the dungeon boss. Rathnar suggested the group should keep moving forward to next floors despite their main objective being completed here. Yet, his proposition was met with silence. So what are you suggesting? That we should go just based on your hunch? There could be many dangers that might as well kill us. Asked Khan with a suspicious voice again. Since when did you start cowering from taking risks? We even screwed over all the noble factions in my empire, an imperial prince, the Church of Hetrax, and even killed a chosen hero. Compared to that, it's a walk in the park. What's there to worry about? Asked Rathnar unhappily. And let's say whatever it is and somehow we manage to get it. What's there to guarantee that we won't get caught into the crossfire? I already established myself properly in this empire without raising suspicion. I'm not in the mood to risk it all. Responded Khan in a lifeless tone. Don't forget, kid. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. Who knows if you can get the treasure that even this hero of life is so diligently trying to acquire by risking his life? He kept suggesting persistently. What if you find something that could instantly raise your rank or give you an absolutely amazing ability that could help you fight other heroes or protect yourselves from those people who are coming to hunt you? You're a smart guy, you should know the benefits. Said the Peak Saint and finished his piece. Khan was perplexed after hearing this rebuttal and gave it a thought in his mind. Because it wasn't even confirmed that they'd get caught or even get the so-called treasure in the first place. Suddenly, a wide grin formed on Khan's face, the corner of his lips rising as high as they could be. Meanwhile, Rathnar had a similar greedy and covetous grin inside his soul. Because Rathnar was also a risk-taker. He too had the history of acquiring the Tablet of Arcana by taking risks and making sacrifices. Because what Rathnar suggested was indeed the truth. Being overprepared was 100 times better than being underprepared. Who knew if the mysterious group suddenly found him? The more cards he had to escape or protect himself, the better. As for the subordinates, all of them were confident in their skills and abilities to survive. On top of it, if the situation turned dire, Khan was the kind to prepare an escape route first. Thus, this decision reached a unified consensus. The expedition shall carry on. 2 hours later, the group finished ransacking the entire floor's natural resources and alchemy ingredients since they had the manpower and the floor boss was non-existent. And finally, they regrouped. However, Legolas spoke with Edmund. We're thinking about continuing to further floors, but we have already completed our main goal here, he said. Edmund was suddenly taken aback. It took him a dozen seconds to respond anxiously. It will be too hard from now on. We may lose our lives, said the Saint Alchemist. Yes, we were lucky to accomplish their mission without having to fight the boss. But from here on, we can't guarantee your safety if you come with us, said Legolas. The human saint quickly understood what the Ironborn elf was trying to imply. They wanted Edmund to leave on his own volition instead of becoming a burden on their group since things were going to be even more dangerous. I understand. Our main goal is realized, so there's no need for me to tag along. I'll leave, said the masked saint as he sighed. In the end, although they were business partners, the matter of Misthios' guild and his own alchemy enterprise was different. He had no say in their decision, and neither did they owe him an explanation. Besides, Edmund himself was aware that other than being able to provide some power boost and healing potions, he'd be no help during a battle. And Darwin was the member of the Misthios Guild who could fill in that role already. In the past couple of months since they entered the immortal dungeon, he had grown accustomed to all the people present here. He was aware of how strong these people were, so him sticking around made no sense. "I will be waiting for you in Sparta," he said, and activated his dungeon pass as he bade farewell to the group. Everyone watched him disappear into thin air, a sense of relief washing over their minds. Khan then turned to his subordinates and gave a command. "We will progress on the coattails of the heroes' party. Let's hope we catch up and won't have to face another floor boss." Just 2 hours later, another being covered in a white and green cloak appeared on this floor, completely alone. The aura of this individual was that of a peak 5th stage saint. "This has made my job easy. I shall keep following them and progress without having to fight myself. As for the Misthios Guild," he spoke with an ominous voice, "I'll get rid of them as soon as I reach the final floor." 10 days later, the entry door flashed and a slim figure of a 4th stage Saint Summoner who was half-breed elf appeared on the final floor of the immortal dungeon. Ervelyn managed to achieve what nobody had done before. But as soon as he appeared on the floor, an intangible force pulled him away towards the center of this floor at supersonic speed. "Impossible! How can such a thing exist in this empire?" he asked in disbelief as soon as the dungeon boss revealed its existence. Just then, an insidious and terrifying voice landed on his ears. "Oh, they sent another hero of life? This one is unqualified as well. Simply too weak," spoke this ginormous being that was whooping 5 kilometers tall. Something that only few mountains on Earth managed to reach. "Wait, if there's some sort of test, I can prove myself worthy," shouted Ervelyn. "Is that so? Well then, I will use only 5% of my power and attack you. If you manage to defend against it or even counter with your own skills, I shall deem you qualified," spoke this being. Just these simple words shook the nearby 20 kilometers of region. "Prepare yourself, you damn elf," shouted this tyrannical being. But the next second, a bright blue light flashed as the final boss used its weakest attack. Boom! The nearby 5 kilometers of ground disintegrated while there was a 500-meter deep pit in the ground in this charred vicinity. Ervelyn, the hero of life, who arduously worked to get here and even had his allies sacrifice their lives to complete this mission, was simply pulverized into nothingness, not even leaving his ashes behind. Impetuous, otherworldly bastard, they should have told you already, spoke this majestic and tyrannical being that existed in this dungeon for 1,000 years, revealing a vengeful expression. "I hate the heroes and gods." After Ervelyn was killed by the dungeon boss in mere seconds without even getting a chance to protect himself, this incident ended his journey inside the immortal dungeon. The remaining body, or should we call as the remaining Ervelyn, threw up a lot of blood as he retched, suffering immense pain at the same time. At this moment, 3 different colored orbs covered in archaic formations passed into the center of his body at the speed of light. Damn it! The divine abilities I left with that body returned. I have failed my mission. He spoke with a regretful and infuriated tone as his eyes turned blood red from rage. Unlike Khan's doppelgangers, Ervelyn could create real copies of himself who also possessed the same rank as him and had methods that allowed him to impart a set of his own divine abilities to a particular copy. In Khan's case, none of his doppelgangers could use the divine abilities, the blessings given by war deity and the deities of blacksmithing, or even the bloodline abilities like his main body. But this was not the case for Ervelyn Baslark, the hero whose abilities were chosen by the god of life himself. And every time Ervelyn died, he could exchange life force and resurrect himself using the spare copy. However, in case all the copies died, the information and memories experienced by that Ervelyn would go back to the main body. And this wasn't the end of it either. As long as even one copy remained, The divine abilities as well as all the memories could be passed to it, making that one into real Ervelyn. This made him basically unkillable unless all Ervelyn were standing at one place and killed together. However, these were just two of his divine abilities. The rest were chosen to make it impossible to kill by overcoming that flaw as well. This was why nobody who knew of his secrets believed that Hero of Life could be killed. At the present moment, Ervelyn used his healing abilities while processing the set of information that just appeared in his mind. "What the hell?" he shouted in disbelief as soon as he processed the memories from the copy that died on the final floor. His entire countenance was that of a terrified man who had given into despair and forsaken life. Only after a few minutes did he manage to return to reality as sweat dripped from his entire body and chin. "Why didn't the Emperor tell me anything about it?" he asked himself, completely confused. In an hour, he requested for an urgent council with both the Emperor and the abbot who resided in their respective palaces. How can that thing exist in a dungeon? It shouldn't be possible for a supreme dungeon to create that creature. He spoke in front of the two monarchs of Zivet Empire in a heavily secured chamber. "Did you see it with your own eyes?" asked the Emperor with an expectant gaze. "Of course I did. Only because one of my divine abilities allowed me to retrieve my memories," spoke Ervelyn and explained what he saw on the last floor. Both the Emperor-class High Elves were taken aback slightly. "Brother, it's weaker compared to the time when our grandfather reigned over this empire. But it's still very resentful," said the abbot. Then his gaze turned to Ervelyn as he iterated, "To tell you the truth, you're not the only Hero of Life who reached the final floor. The imperial family had spread the rumor that no one was able to cross the 81st floor to keep its existence a secret. That creature, you know what will happen if the whole empire learned about it." He spoke in a stern voice. The 8th stage Saint Rank Emperor then cut in. But there was one big problem. Nobody, not even the Hero of Life from those times, ever managed to come back alive. Except for your predecessor, the two Hero of Life that came before also died after reaching that floor. He explained. "But can such a powerful creature be contained there? It's not really the dungeon boss, is it?" asked the short and white-haired hero. "That monstrous being didn't even use 5% of its strength but killed me. A 4th stage saint in a blink of an eye," spoke Ervelyn, revealing a devastated and frightened expression. "What do you think is the source of those dungeons in Alfheim? Its power has been consumed and drained over 1,000 years now to create those dungeons. If the normal people or the nearby empires found out, they would all attack the Zivet Empire to take control over that being. That's why we hid the truth. Otherwise, there would be no Zivet Empire in existence," explained the Emperor sternly. "But now that you know, you have a higher chance to prepare and succeed," said the abbot in a joyous tone. I do not have the confidence anymore. Besides, everyone else is dead. Only I know what exists there. No one would come with me to die," he said in an exhausted tone. Through his memories, he already knew how hard it was to even reach there. Even his body, with 3 divine abilities at his disposal, barely managed to do it. To his defeated countenance, the abbot replied in a warm tone. "Ervelyn, you're different from all of your predecessors. That's why we offered you the deal that was never even considered for any chosen hero, not even the 4th Hero of Life, Bjorn Ragnarsson. If you manage to control it, you'll not only be our family and marry the princess, which goes against our ancestral laws, but you will also be able to wield an unimaginable power that would decide the fate of our empire in the upcoming war against the demon god." Next, the Emperor spoke with an amicable smile. "The Immortal Dungeon will open next year again. You always have the opportunity to try. We will provide you with whatever you need." "I can't. Not unless I become a 5th stage saint first. I need at least 5 more years to create more bodies and try again," he spoke, partially declining the command. Both the monarchs had a gloomy faces after hearing this response, but they were patient enough to let it slide. "And what about my comrades?" he asked. The Emperor and the abbot had heard about what happened. Ervelyn was once a king who had led the uprising and also overthrew the previous rule. He led powerful people during his rise to power and journey to become the king. But now that his subordinates were dead, there were bound to be repercussions within the top high elf classes. The reason? It wasn't even a glorified war with other empires but a dungeon expedition that even the public knew about. Their deaths couldn't be covered so easily, and the hero's party would be a laughingstock for not only the empire but the entire world. His capabilities to lead as a chosen hero would also be questioned by the people if that happened. Just then, the emperor spoke calmly. "We have a way to justify their deaths. We purposely held important information, and now we are going to use it to our advantage." "You mean?" Ervelin's eyes widened as he could already think of the best way to get out of this predicament because of his past life experience. "Yes, we will declare it to the entire Zivit Empire and change the narrative of the truth by blaming their deaths on," revealed the emperor and declared their intentions. Hero of Darkness. The two beings who stood at the top of the hierarchy of the Zivit Empire, aka the Emperor and the Abbot, revealed their plan to blame the deaths of Hero's party members on the notorious Hero of Darkness in order to cover up the incident that transpired inside the Immortal Dungeon. The secret, well hidden since the past millennia, was worth far more than the lives of their own people that loyally served them. And to keep it hidden, Hero of Darkness was the best excuse they could use to blame for the deaths. Currently, other than the Emperor, the Abbot, their loyal servants, Ervelin and Mirienne, were the only people who knew about their deaths. Even the families of the fallen had no idea about their demise. Mirienne had yet to arrive in the capital, so they already told her to keep this matter secret and arrive covertly. As for the group which is hunting the Hero of Darkness, who could raise questions about the incident, we would create a site of the battle and fake a few scenarios which would make it seem like the Hero of Darkness and his forces wanted to kill you, the Hero of Life. They ambushed your party just like how it happened with Hero of Fire in the Vulcan Empire. But luckily, 2 of you escaped while the rest died while defending to protect the future of the Empire. This would be our story, and we will perfect every detail after Mirienne comes here," revealed the Emperor with a persuasive tone. All of them would be turned into virtuous warriors, and their respective clans and families would be offered great compensation as well. Compared to the importance of the secret of that being, it's a very small price. And in the end, Hero of Darkness would be labeled as the enemy of the Elven Empire. In simple words, we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, iterated the Abbot. It looked like the duo had already predicted this outcome and prepared before Ervelin even started his expedition a couple of months ago. So that's why they didn't announce anything to the people of Zivit Empire. Both of them are cold and ruthless, but the plan is indeed genius, thought the Hero of Life. All 3 of them agreed upon things between themselves, and he wasn't even bothered about the sacrifice of his comrades. Not that he was heartless, but sometimes, to protect peace and stability, lying was the only option. As for Ervelin's next expedition to the Immortal Dungeon, they had both time and resources, and now his only target was to break through to 5th Stage Saint. An hour later, Ervelin arrived at Eleanor's palace and told her what actually happened. Eleanor was heartbroken and terrified after hearing that everyone died. Her head spun around in shock and sadness. "Don't worry. Your best friend Mirienne is still alive," he spoke with a smile. "What? How? Didn't you say everyone died?" asked the princess haphazardly. "I made her leave before facing the dungeon boss. She should arrive in a couple of days," he replied in a caring voice. Only now did Eleanor let out a sigh of relief and recovered from the shock. Unbeknownst to Ervelin, he had inadvertently saved his romantic rival, the female elf who Eleanor was truly in love with. As the conversation continued, he explained what was about to happen from now on. Eleanor nodded in affirmation and complied. After Ervelin left and she was alone in her bedroom, Eleanor let out a devious smile and spoke, "Well done, my puppet." Giving it another thought, the princess thought about the times when she actually started her plan 6 years ago when Ervelin was summoned to Vantria. Ervelin died in his previous world, but the god of life already had his eyes on him to summon as his new chosen hero. All he did was revive him again and chose the divine abilities for Ervelin, giving him a chance to restart his life in his original body. But when Ervelin was brought into Zivit Empire, his mental state was still full of loss and hatred. It took him months to even accept his new identity and role as a chosen hero. This was when her father and uncle revealed their intentions. They planned to tie Ervelyn to their family through marriage, using the excuse that he was half-elf so it was acceptable. But her position would still be the same, and her brother, who went missing, was still going to be the emperor. But she would not accept such a fate. Thus, Eleanor started her plans to become the empress of the Elven Empire using the Hero of Life. After making dozens of attempts and finally befriending Ervelyn through numerous efforts, she learned many things about him. But she later deduced that Ervelyn had abandonment issues. In his previous world, Ervelyn's mother died protecting him, and his best friend betrayed him for his throne. The woman he loved never actually cared for him and was also using him for her own gains, joining hands with his treacherous friend. This betrayal had broken his psyche from the inside, leaving a deep scar on his mind. Not everyone took life experience the same way. Ervelyn ended up thinking that his life was bound to be filled with loneliness, and he would never be truly loved by anyone. In the beginning, he was distrustful of everyone, including her. But she patiently left hints and made him trust her after sharing many things regarding the Empire and the matters related to heroes and gods. A broken person who had a tendency to blame themselves for not being enough, getting abandoned by others, and suffering heartbreak after heartbreak, was prone to yearn for love and affection no matter how small it was. These type of people often lost their reasoning in the process. In their mind, anyone who showed them affection and sense of belonging would become the center of their world and their life. Only after 5 years, Eleanor successfully turned him into her chess piece by gaslighting him again and again, making him think that it was he who loved and wanted the princess, not the other way around. Over a year ago, Ervelyn finally confessed to her after gathering all the courage he had. But, unexpectedly, the beautiful and kind princess also said she loved and admired him equally. And finally, she deepened their relationship by manipulating the hero slowly through their romantic relationship. Now, Ervelyn was nothing but a chess piece that would pave the way for her to achieve her goals. A pawn who danced on the tip of her finger. While everyone was playing the game of political chess and progressing in their own plans quietly, there was one person who was oblivious about the upcoming storm as he and his entourage focused on their journey. Even without doing anything this time, Khan was going to be blamed for another massacre of a chosen heroes party, just so the top ruling powers of the Elven Empire could shirk the blame for their incompetence and irresponsibility on him to hide their secrets. 10 days later. Phew! This is enough for today. We will rest and recuperate for a day here. Tomorrow we will go for the 91st floor boss, commanded Khan as they rested on the 90th floor. After killing the Elder Hydra, they didn't face many problems, and in the meantime, all the varieties of monsters that appeared on these floors were killed by their group. But now that no one was watching, Khan and Cyril decided to use this opportunity to raise the number of their respective armies. Khan absorbed the abilities of these mobs and then turned them into new members of the Legion. In the past 10 days alone, he added 50,000 more new subordinates from varying and unseen species, all of whom had different uses, skills, and fighting abilities. Some of them were even useful to fight in a sea-like terrain, and Khan also gained a few water elemental abilities and attack skills. Cyril, on the other end, created 150,000 undead soldiers and monsters instead, after causing a great massacre with a maniacal look on his face as if he was competing against everyone. So their journey in the past 10 days had been fruitful despite being time-consuming. And finally, they were prepared to face the next dungeon boss. Khan and the company had no idea that this boss was the reason behind the death of a 5th-stage high-elf saint swordsman, specifically the one who sneered at Legolas in front of the dungeon entrance and called him low-life trash. However, the Hero of Life and Hero of Darkness had different types of supporters. The former's allies were standard and mainstream fighting class saints found throughout the world, while the latter's group was filled with unique monsters that had legendary rank abilities, bloodlines, and strength that far exceeded the norm. And with the confidence in their eyes as well as thoroughly planning a few battle strategies, the group entered the next floor. A vast and unending ocean filled with dark blue waters and raging tides came into sight. The rainstorm on this floor was so strong that even flying metallic ships would have a hard time navigating in the sky. As for saints, They were lucky that the mana and world energy was accessible on this floor. Otherwise, all of them would have dropped inside the deep waters as soon as they appeared out of the suspending entry door in the sky. There were only 4 to 5 stone platforms in the nearby 50 kilometers radius, while the rest was nothing but cold and erratic sea. The lightning flashes in the sky rumbled as the dark and cloudy clouds poured rain all over their bodies. "Where is the boss?" queried Cyril. Khan and Ronan both activated the hunter domain, which expanded to 45 kilometers based on their current rank, allowing both to track and locate living creatures whether they were in the sky or the ground. But as soon as they used their skills to detect the floor boss, the latter itself detected them instead. Boom! A massive pillar of salt water erupted, spanning 500 meters in radius alone, and the strong tide rose even higher as a ginormous being revealed itself. A 3 kilometers tall water elemental monster with a massive 100-meter-tall head that had glowing red eyes and hundreds of octopus-like tentacles wriggling around its mouth. Growl! The shape of this enormously humongous being that even made Blackwell in his true form look like a dwarf in comparison, growled and sent shivers in their spines with its tremendously oppressive killing intent. The 2 600 meters wide massive and fleshly wings in its back, which allowed it to fly in the sky, spread open majestically and flapped consequently. Just the strong gales from these wings were akin to natural tornadoes that would destroy large living areas in a single gust. And finally, its full figure was revealed to the group as the floor boss roared loudly, challenging the intruders to a death match with its dreary and tyrannical war cry. But as soon as they saw the floor boss, everyone, including even Rathnar, who only watched from Khan's soul, spoke in a dejected voice, "We should have given up." Everyone had bamboozled and ashen expressions on their countenances as they maintained a distance of 40 kilometers, not daring to move by a single step lest they make the boss of this floor attack them. "No wonder we got so many sea monsters and laws associated with water on the previous floors. It was just a calm before the storm," said Khan, who was now in his original appearance. "Master, we have no terrain advantage or many useful abilities to use against it even if we all turn into our true monster forms," spoke Omega in a gloomy voice. "Yes, human. Even I can't fight it inside the sea if I turn into my real form," said Rudra, admitting his shortcomings in front of this enemy that was glaring at them from afar. "What about you, Oliver?" asked Khan. "I can get rid of the storms, the clouds, and those lightning strikes while using them to attack it instead. But I don't think it'll make much difference," said the Emerald Archer General. "As for me, my movements will be restricted as soon as I drop inside the deep sea," said Blackwell. The rest of the group had no confidence in themselves either. But right at this moment the system notified quickly. "The host has found a variant primordial titan of water element. It is advised to the host to kill it and absorb its abilities." "So this thing is a variant primordial titan in Vantria? I wondered if it was a god beast instead," said Khan as he chuckled. "It's a good thing that we no longer have to hold back since Edmund isn't here," spoke Khan and gave an order. Boom! One after another, all of their auras suddenly changed and turned more potent and powerful. This time, all of them had quickly equipped their legendary rank armors and weapons made by Throck. As for Khan, he instantly summoned the Dracos armor while the dragon bloodline effect turned his skin gray. His hair long white and eyes started glowing red. Because their opponent was a mythical rank creature, comparable to a peak 5th stage that was very famous in mythology even on Earth. The variant primordial titan they were facing was a Cthulhu. After facing the domineering and ginormous boss that was 3 times the size of Blackwell's original form and approaching them at a steady pace, the group had somber expressions. If there was solid ground, all of them would have chosen to use their true forms and massive bodies to overpower them. But other than Cyril, Ronan, and Oliver, none of them could fly in their legendary and mythical rank forms. Thus, it would have troubled their group instead. And now, with the legendary armors and weapons in play, they decided to go all out from the start. "System, tell me its abilities," ordered Khan. "The mythical floor boss named Cthulhu has abilities such as instant regeneration, impervious defense to all elements, absolute monarchy over water element, and a long list of aquatic skills and abilities that allows it to control the nearby 50 kilometers of the sea to attack and defend at the same time. Reported the system, but it continued in a lifeless tone again. However, the Cthulhu has a very unique ability because of its physiology. It iterated. What is it? The system then told Khan about the unique ability. Khan sneered with discontent after hearing the details. Seriously, it's like the creators of this dungeon didn't want people to clear the dungeon at all. This one is just too OP even as a floor boss. He spoke with an indignant expression. And weaknesses? System quickly revealed the weaknesses of the floor boss that was rapidly heading towards them. I see. Then I guess we have a plan, said Khan, and then devised a battle strategy in mere seconds. Let's go, he commended his allies. Blackwell in his Atlas armor while equipping Aegis and Heracles quickly took the front of their formation. Soon, the ginormous, to whom these intruders were even smaller than ants, decided to launch a barrage of massive water cannon-like attacks towards all of them. Blackwell quickly activated the Iron Will skill that came with his armor and created a 50-meter-wide brown barrier made of world energy. Bang! He then used Gluttony and Royal Guard skill effects from Aegis Shield while facing these massive cannonballs that were no different than heavy stone boulders because of their density. His main purpose was to absorb and build water elements resistance while defending his group. However, his hopes didn't take long to crash down. Right before their eyes, the dark and pouring clouds in the sky resonated with the high tides from the sea that arose whooping 100 meters under Cthulhu's control. But right at this moment, Oliver in his Hawkman form while donning shoe armor and Neath Bow flew high, breaking the sound barrier consequently as he used the Jetstream skill. As soon as he reached the troposphere of this floor, his body emanated a blue and golden aura, quickly spreading in the 10 kilometers radius as Oliver activated his sky domain. The moment he assumed command of the sky, all the pouring clouds stopped while the rumbling and erratic lightning stopped. The Cthulhu roared in rage as it detected that Oliver had hijacked this perimeter, breaking his control. In the end, it was a water elemental being, not a wind elemental creature who controlled the sky like Oliver. The Thunderbird General had now taken away the advantage of using the storm and lightning strikes to attack the intruders. Right then, 5 massive 500 meters long tridents made of blistering and sizzling magma came to be in Cthulhu's sight. Because finally, Rudra was using his trident warrior skills to create these threatening weapons made of his corrosive magma and pointed them towards the incoming boss. He had been practicing for months from an instructor and even used the 51st floor boss as his punching bag to test his mastery. So now it was time to display his skills against a powerful opponent. But suddenly, a massive 10-kilometer radius red-colored dome came into existence as soon as the boss came close to them. Jugram activated his Hell domain and the temperature instantly rose to 500 degrees Celsius, making most of the water on Cthulhu's body and the surface of the sea evaporate at visible rate. As a result, the floor boss physical defenses decreased by 50% because of his domain, while Oliver's sky domain also reduced its agility and dexterity. However, this wasn't the end of the surprise. Omega, who was donning the Twilight armor and hovered on the left side, also activated his gravity domain, instantly pressuring the boss and halting its steps to a great degree. He was fully capable of fighting Cthulhu on his own just like Rudra, but they were not acting out based on their instinct because of Khan's orders. The massive blue-bodied Cthulhu roared, sending shockwaves in the surrounding 5-kilometer radius to break free from these domains. However, how could breaking free from domains that were created by associating laws of nature be that easy? Soon, the 20 kilometers of the region was covered under a visible black dome as Khan activated Dimensional Domain, instantly reducing all of Cthulhu's physical stats and ability effects by 50%. Armin, who was wearing Nirvana armor and had Hermes' staff in his hands, put various buff effects on all of their skills and the damage output of killer moves. "Activate it!" shouted Khan. Khan's voice reverberated in the surroundings. Without waiting for a grand reveal, all the generals and Omega let out a grin, and soon 7 different archaic formations appeared above their bodies, each containing their different colors and auras with their respective owners. 7 massive pillars rose and formed a net that spread across the 30 kilometers radius of the battlefield. And finally, 5 dragon heads appeared and formed a pentagram-shaped barrier around this battlefield. All of their physical strength stat rose by 3 times and mana capacity as well as skill damage output rose by 2 times under the effect of their biggest battlefield killer formation. Just for a single floor boss. They were going to the extreme preparations as if they were fighting a chosen hero like they fought in the Vulcan Empire. Why? Because after hearing about Cthulhu's unique abilities, the system told Khan, he realized one thing very clearly. All of their killer moves, overbearing domains and the powerful Pendragon formation, which should be an overkill to face this ruler of the sea, were not enough. While Khan and the group were preparing to face the mythical rank Cthulhu, the outside of the immortal dungeon was in an uproar. Because at this moment, thousands of people had surrounded the dungeon while making hundreds of camps and barracks in the nearby region within 5 kilometers radius. All these people belonged to different forces and organizations. As for the military, they left a long time ago. Soon, a massive spherical formation in front of the immortal dungeon glowed bright blue, and over 30 figures appeared. Finally, "We're outside!" exclaimed a female elf saint. "I'm alive! I'm alive!" shouted a human berserker saint, his eyes tearing up in joy. All of them had downtrodden countenances while most of them were gravely injured and covered in blood. Soon, the people started thanking their god of life for helping them survive the hellish nightmare called the immortal dungeon. Hundreds of people who were observing this entrance from their respective bases flocked towards this group. The newly arrived group was comprised of their leaders, and every one of these survivors was a saint. Lagertha, whose body was full of lacerations and shallow wounds, looked around. Her heart was filled with dejection and guilt, because out of the 12 saints they had, only 7 came back alive, and even her close friends such as Rose Hightower and the Vice Guildmaster had already died during the fight. The other groups were also no different. Out of the 2 fifth-stage saints that were part of the previous alliance, both of them were already dead. As for the origin of their miserable state, it was the 81st floor boss. Back then, Ervelyn and the Heroes Party had taken care of it and Khan's group arrived just within a week so they didn't have to fight it. But when Lagertha and the other saints, who were the last force to arrive there, it was well past 10 days and the boss had respawned. Just remembering its monstrous appearance sent shivers down her spine and rose goosebumps on her skin. Why? Because for the survival of the masses, a sacrifice was made. When they couldn't take down the mythical rank floor boss and there seemed to be no way, they had to abandon some of their allies behind to distract the boss and enter the safe zones and had to be out of combat for quite some time. And only then did they manage to use their dungeon passes to exit the immortal dungeon and come out alive. A survival that greatly cost them, and the guilt would forever weigh on her mind. Lagertha was escorted to a medical bay quickly, and the remaining people were getting healed. She then asked one of her people that was a peak Grandmaster Golden Masked Assassin who was the head of her intel group. "Who else exited before us?" There was only one person, a high elf priestess. I believe she was part of the Heroes Party. But as soon as she came, the military generals escorted her and left this place within an hour. Reported the assassin in black light armor. "Then what about them?" she queried while panting slowly. "The Misthios Guild is still inside," informed the assassin in a rustic voice. Lagertha was speechless after hearing the reply. Why? Because if the Misthios Guild didn't come out, then it could lead to only 2 conclusions. Means they're all either dead, or they're still exploring the dungeon. In the meantime, Khan and his group were done with setting their battle formations and encircling the boss from all sides. Yet the size of Cthulhu was way too big for them to even make a significant injury. As for why Khan used all of their trump cards since the very beginning, because the biggest disadvantage here was the battlefield itself. The floor boss could use the water from the sea to fight them back, using it like its ally while fighting on multiple fronts at the same time. And it could also use the deep sea to escape easily. A battlefield catering to the boss while making endless trouble for the intruders. And even though Khan had few S-rank skills to swim and breathe in water, how could he compare against Cthulhu, the ruler of the sea? Plus, only Khan, Omega, and Rudra had the physical strength as well as rank to withstand its pressure in a close-range fight. Others like Cyril and Armin wouldn't even be able to move under that pressure. Thus, closing off its route to escape was the best thing while reducing most of its stats to bring it down to the level of a being comparable to a fourth-stage saint. "Everyone, start attacking now!" shouted Khan, and he himself quickly activated Dragon Strike, even mixing darkness element in it right from the start. Cyril then used the Book of the Damned and Chains of Judgment. These skills boosted his mana capacity and spell output by 5 times. He could even fight a 4th-stage saint despite only being a peak 2nd-stage saint with these skills. However, the skills weren't enough to hold back this monster called one of the old sea gods on Earth. 5 titanic sizzling tridents, each being 500 meters long and made of magma, struck the Cthulhu, which was moving slowly because of the several debuff effects from 4 different domains on its body. The tridents plunged into Cthulhu's chest, shoulders, and thighs in a succession. But in just 10 seconds, all the injuries created by these enormous tridents that could even destroy a warship in a single hit were instantly regenerated. Although Rudra's corrosive magma attacks were helpful because he activated Atlan's ability to harness the guardian dragons to use the dragon's aura, the creature was not receiving any significant damage. At this exact moment, Khan also acted out after Dragon Strike failed to make a deep injury and used the Dimensional Cut skill as his intangible slashing move made of Space Force swung quickly towards the neck of Cthulhu. A shockwave resounded in the 2-kilometer radius. But instead of giving them any satisfaction, the Cthulhu gave a mocking look to Khan. Because even Khan's strongest attack skill, which was unrivaled by all of their group's killer moves, couldn't even cut Cthulhu's neck. Even Khan was bamboozled at this point because even his unparalleled and probably one of the most sure-shot killing moves, aka the Dimensional Cut that could cut anything in 3 kilometers range with a single swing at this point, failed to cut off Cthulhu's head. What the hell happened here? Is its unique ability that much overpowered? Asked Khan himself in a befuddled voice. The system had already informed him about Cthulhu's unique ability. If even an entire arm was cut down, it could reattach and recover instantly without any ramifications. But the neck region was always the weakest part, and an unrivaled attack skill like Dimensional Cut should have been enough to cut off Cthulhu's head. Boy, your attack did cut its neck. But the cells regenerated and healed it so fast that you couldn't even see it happening. Informed Rathnar in Khan's mind. Katan Surashu. Bang! While Khan was taken aback because of this incident, Omega in Twilight Armor quickly used Kojin while harnessing the Dragonfire to make a powerful katana/strike. This was one of his newly created skills that killed the legendary rank Venial Cardo monster in a single swing. The Cthulhu roared in pain for the first time as he was hit with the attack, and although the massive 100-meter-long katana didn't penetrate its defense, the Dragonfire still spread across its entire body. But even after getting burned alive by the strongest fire on the planet, its instant regeneration ability was healing it continuously, and it completely recovered in just 15 seconds. Truly worthy of being a descendant of the primordial titans, said Khan with an incredulous and hateful expression, almost jealous at this point. With their current attack skills, restrictions placed by domains on the physical stats such as attack, defense, agility, and health, even the Elder Hydra would have died easily because of this unified onslaught. But the Cthulhu was so strong, being impervious to most of their attacks. Even the strongest attack skills Khan, Omega, and Rudra had were just barely enough to temporarily injure it. This regeneration speed was even 5 times faster than the Elder Hydra. This time, the Cthulhu revealed a murderous aura, much denser than before because it was thoroughly infuriated from the previous attack. And to counter this onslaught, the Cthulhu just waved its hands and its eyes glowed even brighter. Soon, hundreds of massive pillars of whirling water rose and thousands of blades made of high-pressured water came to be. All of these creations rotated in a circular motion and encircled the massive Titan descendant, creating an impenetrable wall of protection. The nearby 3 kilometers of area was now full of this typhoon-like barrier, and all 3 of them were forced to retreat. Because these blades were more than capable of injuring their bodies even if they could make only shallow cuts. However, if thousands of those blades attacked together, even someone like Rudra, who had the strongest defense in their crew, would be turned into minced meat after some time. Blackwell was holding one front, but in the end, the enemy was still 15 times stronger than him, and there was very little he could do. Even Cthulhu's command of water was simply too powerful. Just the water blades made of incomprehensible pressure were big and sharp enough to cut through adamantine and orichalcum, two of the hardest metals in this world, easily. If they weren't using all these domains and Pendragon formation to repress the floor boss, all of them would already be dead. This creature was a descendant of the primordial titans. Those beings existed even before dragons and god-beasts in the world. Even the legendary rank mountain titan they fought in Verlassen was something they barely managed to kill because of luck and dimensional cut divine ability. Looks like all our methods are useless. Even dimensional cut won't kill it because it'd be able to regenerate instantly even if I cut the core. Spoke Khan in dejection. The regeneration abilities and impenetrable defenses made it a nigh-invincible enemy. And a prolonged battle would only benefit Cthulhu because of the unending supply of water from the sea. In the end, it'd be them who ran out of world energy, while the boss simply stood quietly without even having a scratch on its body. Even destroying its core won't do the job, said Khan. This was the second unique ability of Cthulhu. Even if they destroyed its heart, cut the core, or even butchered its entire body, the mythical rank boss would still be able to pull back all of its destroyed body parts and regenerate on the spot. In simple words, Cthulhu was unkillable with their current skills and abilities. I can use a skill to get out of this situation, but losing the core would be way too big a loss. I'm pretty sure the Elder Hydra would have given me a lot of useful abilities if I wasn't forced to destroy its core. So this time, let's kill and harvest the body properly. Khan declared his intention. Just then, Rathnar decided to speak. Kid, you have no choice but to use that. To his voice, Khan replied with a somber expression. Yeah, but I still can't fully control it, and it's really taxing on mind and burdens my soul greatly, he iterated, because Khan remembered the only weakness of Cthulhu that system told him about. Sigh. Khan sighed in helplessness, but the following moment, his expression turned full of fortitude and sovereignty. Suddenly, a dimensional void crack appeared beside Khan. A massive orb emanating black, white, red, and yellow light came out from the true dimension. Even the Cthulhu was instantly alarmed and faltered in its steps. The mythical rank boss roared in anger as it felt the threat from this 5-meter-tall object. Tell me, do you bleed? He spoke in an overbearing voice, and suddenly, and the next second, boom! A horrifying and insurmountable aura arose from this object, terrifying the boss for the first time since the battle began. You will, Khan declared majestically, and the orb started raging wildly as intense and scalding flames arose from it. Since even the dragonfire wasn't being helpful against Cthulhu, a big comparable to God in their eyes, Khan had his own god killer. At this moment, he decided to utilize the strongest weapon he currently possessed. The divine weapon, Amaterasu. For the first time since he got it, Khan was now using the hero of fire's divine weapon, aka Amaterasu. Currently, he only had partial ownership of it, and the divine weapon itself hadn't completely submitted to Khan as if it had a sentience of its own. Khan couldn't even store it inside his dimensional domain because this thing would literally burn everything and everyone it touched. Thus, Khan could only keep it inside the true dimension and subconsciously carry it with him, since even the laws of space couldn't destroy the divine weapon. The plus point here was that Amaterasu also couldn't harm anything from the real world. The only problem here was that the current Khan couldn't use it for more than one attack based on his current control on the weapon and his rank. If he had complete ownership, maybe he'd be able to use it just like Axel did during their fight. Damn it! It's already pressuring my soul and consciousness, thought Khan as he felt a mountainous burden on his entire being. Don't worry, kid. I'll help you use it, but still, it has to be your own soul essence to make the attack, spoke Rathnar. Khan did not know how to use his soul essence or harness it to use a divine weapon, since he didn't have his own. Plus, no one had taught him anything about it. And this wasn't the time to start learning it either. System, allow him to take control of only the required portion of my soul essence. Ordered Khan vigilantly. Rathnar then took control of a small 10% of Khan's soul, which the latter allowed through the system. Suddenly, a massive 100-meter-tall archaic formation appeared ahead of Amaterasu and emitted a terrifying aura of a godly creation. Oliver, now! He commanded hurriedly. Oliver, who was maintaining the sky domain distance for a while and flying 10 kilometers away in the sky, finally reacted. He used Neath Bow and suddenly, a 100-meter-long and glowing white phantom bow appeared in the sky. A blue lightning element arrow appeared, and at the tip of the arrow was a 5-meter-tall white orb made of mystical energy. Shoot! Oliver shot the arrow at the speed of light, breaking the sound barrier in succession. Boom! This time, Cthulhu's ginormous body itself became the biggest disadvantage and the arrow struck its back. Bang! However, the attack didn't even hurt the floor boss because it had a perfect defense against lightning. But the next moment, the white orb that came with the arrow suddenly let out a shrilling noise and exploded. Even Cthulhu's 3 kilometers tall being faltered in its steps, almost dropping to its knees as aftermath. Soul distortion. This was one of the unique skills for Oliver. Although Khan could use it, Oliver was just many times faster and more effective compared to him. The Cthulhu lost control over its body as its soul was damaged. This was the type of attack its instant regeneration skill couldn't recover from easily. And finally, with visible pain on his face and beads of sweat dripping from his forehead, its entire body stopped moving. Nonetheless, this was a window and the perfect situation for Khan to attack. Shoot! Boom! A massive white super beam attack that could pulverize mountains was instantly launched from the archaic magic formation and hit the Cthulhu's torso region, incinerating everything in its wake and creating a 100-meter-wide hole in its chest, while the right side of the torso, including the arm and shoulder, were simply obliterated. And unlike before, even the instant regeneration was failing to rapidly recover the burnt flesh, a feat even the dragonfire couldn't achieve against Cthulhu. Ronan, now! Commanded Khan quickly. Just then, Ronan, who had been using existence concealment since the battle began, appeared inside the massive chest after he used phase shift to bypass the stormy barrier made by Cthulhu, completely uninjured. His gaze landed on the beating heart on the left side of Cthulhu's remaining torso. Boom! A shockwave was released as he took his mythical rank form and, using his 50 meters long arms, he pulled out the 100-meter-tall blue and spherical heart from Cthulhu's body. But without wasting another moment, he quickly threw it towards Omega, who had switched to moonlight armor and raised his speed by 4 times, to appear close to the floor boss instantly. Omega pointed his left palm towards the heart that was flung in his direction. Gravity extraction. Omega used his newly created skill for the second time so far and pulled the core towards him instantly using his gravity loss skill. Ronan on the other end quickly jumped out and the hole itself was healed and closed. Yet, hundreds of fleshly vines and tentacles flew after the heart, trying to get it back. It's just like the system said, thought Khan with an expectant gaze. This was the second unique ability Cthulhu had, which the system warned Khan about. Cthulhu could survive without its heart for many hours as long as there was some sort of intangible connection between them. On top of it, could even break its own heart and the core into pieces and then absorb it back inside its body, regenerating it easily. This was a power that was not found even in any descendant monsters of godbeasts, making it even more difficult to kill even than the Elder Hydra. Back to the present moment. The heart was instantly shot at light speed towards Khan, who flew 5 kilometers away in the sky and was already prepared. All right, I leave this to you guys now, he said. Using his Saint pressure like the Force, Khan stopped the heart midair and deactivated the dimensional domain while pulling the heart inside his pocket dimension. The Cthulhu was furious and went into a frenzied state and flapped its wings to fly towards Khan. Given his size, it only took it 12 seconds to cross 5 kilometers of distance. But before it could attack, Khan let out a devious smirk and quickly created a dimensional void and entered inside. And just like that, the connection between Cthulhu and its main source of power, aka the core, was severed. With the heart and body connection severed, the mythical rank boss went berserk, losing its rationality. Boom! It started attacking all the subordinates frantically in rage. And because dimensional domain was removed, most of its strength returned, making it even more dangerous than before. Omega and Rudra were no longer its match, so all they could do was run around and dodge its attacks. For the next 3 hours, all the generals, Omega and Rudra, could only run away, dodging and evading the attacks from the flying boss that was using the remainder of its world energy to attack them. But suddenly, Cthulhu groaned in exhaustion and its body started becoming docile. As time flew by, it couldn't even move properly, as if it no longer had any energy to even take a single step. Thud! Finally, its titanic body dropped on one of the 1-kilometer widespread stone platforms in the open sea, its breathing becoming slower each moment. Another 30 minutes passed. None of the subordinates even attacked it, and instead, they spectated its last moments from afar. Without using any over-the-top battle skills, causing explosions and destroying the battlefield, they strategically dominated the battle and let the enemy run out of its life force with time. Finally, the floor boss' glowing red eyes turned dim and became pitch black. The mythical rank boss Cthulhu, an existence that none of them could defeat on their own, had finally died. As soon as the 91st floor boss died, a void rift opened and a man in black and blue long coat attire jumped out. Khan panted loudly and descended on the dead Cthulhu's body, while his entire countenance was that of an exhausted man. "Phew! I'll still need a few days to recover," he said as big beads of sweat dropped from his forehead and chin. Using Amaterasu to land that fatal strike at the expense of his soul essence had taken a huge toll on Khan's body, mind and soul all at once. Even after 3 hours, he was still in a weakened state and out of breath. "System, how many?" he queried with a pained expression. "All of the host's physical stats have dropped by 15 levels while the soul is at 90% capacity," reported the system. 15 levels and 10% of my soul essence sacrificed to kill one unkillable enemy. I guess I have no right to complain." He spoke, letting out a contained sigh. Swoosh! Armin quickly landed on Cthulhu's corpse and started using the soul reformation skill to heal Khan's soul, while using his saint rank healing skills to lessen the burden on his body. And now, Khan did what was of the utmost priority. Ability absorption activated. 16 hours later, the divine ability finally did its job after such a long time, despite Khan being a third-stage saint at this point and having reduced the ability absorption period by many folds. So because of this extended time, Khan could already foresee that rewards were going to be amazing. "System report," he ordered with an expectant expression. "Following are the newly gained abilities and skills. Instant regeneration, legendary rank, active. Allows the host to instantly regenerate any body part or an organ by using the world energy and life force stored inside the body, as long as the host's brain, mind, and heart core are still intact. The host also may recover a detached body part. The severed body part will be rejuvenated and reattached while making a complete recovery instantly. This ability applies to all body parts, including the head and the heart. Note: the host can also forcefully sacrifice his levels and physical stats to keep regenerating his injuries even after he runs out of world energy reserves. Ocean Eddies, legendary rank, active. Allows the host to cause underwater whirlpools, hurricanes, and all forms of water storms in a 15-kilometer radius while manipulating their height at will. Note: there must be a large amount of open water bodies available for this skill to work. Waterblade's Hurricane, legendary rank, active. Allows the host to create a domain comprised of millions of high-pressure water blades akin to a storm and surrounds the host as a form of protection barrier, as well as a battlefield that is completely under the host's control. Note: the host needs to practice this skill to increase his mastery and efficiency of this skill. Current range: 5 kilometers radius from the host's body. Psychokinesis/telekinesis, legendary rank, active. allows the host to influence and move outside objects at will using an intangible mind force regardless of their size or state of matter. Note: this was supposed to be only a saint rank skill. But due to the host's immense mental fortitude and adaptability to exert mental pressure caused by constantly managing the host's doppelgangers, the gained ability enhanced itself to fit the host's current physical and mental endurance. Aquatic Resonance, Legendary Rank, Passive. The host now possesses an extremely high affinity with the water element of nature and can easily breathe underwater and even survive the deep sea pressure without any repercussions on the body. Congratulations to the host. From now on, all the physical stats and movement skills will be unhindered in water, and the host can control all water bodies and mass easily at will. Primordial Titan Immunity, Legendary Rank, Passive. Congratulations to the host. Because the host now has complete bloodlines of legendary rank Mountain Titan and mythical rank Cthulhu, two descendant species of the Primordial Titans, and Invimarak, a descendant of God-Beast Behemoth, the host's physiology has undergone a transmutation. Henceforth, all the physical damage received from any elemental attack, skills and spells except for the light and lightning element will be reduced by 70% regardless of their output. Note: the total immunity received will increase with the host's rank. 100% immunity can be achieved if the host becomes a peak saint. King of the Sea, Legendary Rank, Passive. The host can now communicate with water elemental and sea creatures telepathically as well as command and subdue them at will as their sovereign ruler. Note: this ability will work only on creatures who are weaker than the host in terms of rank and levels. Congratulations to the host for gaining a new title, Monarch of Water, Legendary Rank, Passive. The host now has complete invulnerability against water elemental attacks, skills, spells, and creatures with water elemental affinity. The host also can travel at the speed of sound by propelling himself underwater while facing zero resistance on his body. Bloodline Acquired, Cthulhu. Current bloodline purity, 100%. Primordial Titan bloodline collected, 50%. Note: the host still needs 2 more different elemental descendants of Primordial Titans to complete the bloodline. Reported the system. At this moment, Khan's entire body was shivering in excitement. He looked at the ginormous body of the Cthulhu he was standing on, which he still couldn't see completely because of its size. Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! Khan started laughing maniacally. This was a sight only seen when he gets way too many overpowered abilities or too much money. Goddamn 8 legendary rank abilities and skills. 8 damn legendary skills and abilities. He shouted as if experiencing peak euphoria. This is why descendants of god beasts and primordial titans are the best. They always give the most OP abilities, he exclaimed in an elated voice. The gains this time are too immense. I wouldn't have found any of such skills if we hadn't persevered till this floor and given up halfway. Spoke Khan, barely able to contain his happiness even now. Fighting an enemy that was many times stronger than them and seemed insurmountable at the beginning. All of their struggles till this point were worth it. At the present moment, traveling till the 91st floor while risking their lives from the past couple of months had finally shown how it was worth the journey. Khan was overjoyed after counting the fruits of their labor. All the abilities he received from Cthulhu were of legendary rank, and every single one of them was mind-boggling and overpowered to the point even Khan couldn't hide his happiness. Instant regeneration was already the quickest regeneration ability he gained till this point. It could even help him reattach his severed head instantly and even help him recover his heart. Paired with psychokinesis/telekinesis, even if someone cut off his arms, legs, and head, he would still be able to reconnect or regenerate them at will as long as his mind and core were intact. This greatly worked in Khan's favor more than it did for Cthulhu, the original owner of these tremendously powerful and handy skills. If I put my heart inside the true dimension, I can't be killed as long as the space around me isn't sealed. He spoke with an evil grin. because Khan had the dimensional shift skill that came with his dimensional law divine ability. This skill allowed him to temporarily shift his body parts and organs inside the true dimension as long as he wasn't caught off guard and had enough Space Force reserves in his body. Currently, Khan could shift 4 organs at 3rd stage Saint rank. Means he could always send both his head and heart inside the other dimension of reality while consistently regenerating during a battle, making him an opponent who couldn't be killed easily even if the enemy was stronger and more powerful than Khan. This was a deadly combo of different skills that basically made Khan invincible in a way. As for other abilities, they had their own circumstantial but amazing usage. Water element was always the last element Khan had any mastery over because he didn't have any affinity to it till this point, and neither did he study it wholeheartedly due to its limited usage. And as for opponents fighting inside a battlefield surrounded by water or in a sea, he didn't have a single S-rank skill that could be used in such scenarios. But now, Monarch of Water, Ocean Eddies, Aquatic Resonance, and King of Sea skills, all of which were at legendary rank, solved his shortcomings because with these skills, he was extremely powerful even underwater without having a single flaw or disadvantage. Plus, he now achieved perfect immunity against water element, making it the 3rd element of nature he was impervious against since Khan already had complete darkness and fire element immunity because of the Monarch of Darkness title and absorbing divine ki, Flame Scion respectively. Moreover, his immense gains didn't stop just here. In Vimarak, both Titan bloodlines he gained till now made a huge change on his body. Primordial Titan immunity. This innate ability that was just created on the spot was something he cherished the most. Why? Given his war deity body, defensive abilities that he had till this point such as Somir Scales, Dragon Scales, Invimarak Skin, and many others, Khan was already a tougher opponent to kill for someone of the same rank as him. But due to Primordial Titan immunity ability, he was now greatly resistant to most of the elemental attacks and their damages as long it wasn't light or lightning element. But as a reminder, Khan already had phase shift to pass through many attacks regardless of their element. So even in life-threatening situations, he was less likely to get injured at this point in his new life. Then telekinesis/psychokinesis ability in itself was something he wanted since long ago. The immense mental pressure he had been bearing for the past 2 years ever since he started training his blacksmithing skills and learned to endure while using his 15 doppelgangers at that time. They evolved the ability during the ability absorption procedure, and now he was basically Magneto, who could control everything, not just metals. Although he had gravity law skills, his attainment and mastery were negligible compared to Omega. On top of it, he could use only one skill such as attraction, repulsion, upforce, and downforce only one at a time and not move objects in the desired direction or fashion he wanted. As for the Waterblade Hurricane, this ability was just too OP. When Khan, Omega, and Rudra engaged in a direct clash with Cthulhu, all of them could see how this skill would be able to kill millions of enemies easily. Since Khan couldn't always use Dimensional Domain in a fight because it would reveal his identity as the hero of darkness. This was akin to having his own auxiliary or secondary domain that could be used to fool enemies once he became a 5th stage saint. In the future, with those high-pressure blades that could cut through metals and even godbeast bodies, Khan could turn the tide of the battle in his favor as long as he raised his combat mastery in that skill. The only demerit was he needed to be close to a pond, a lake, or a sea. But Khan had no complaints because it was better than having nothing, because they could always find a way to access enough water supply. Should I grow a long and grisly beard? Because with all these water elemental skills and abilities, I'm basically Aquaman now. Spoke Khan in a shameless voice. All right, system. Impart all the suitable skills to my subordinates. He ordered. Command accepted. Responded the system. However, it quickly alerted him the very next moment. None of these skills can be imparted to any of the subordinates. Huh? Why? Queried Khan with a curious tone. Because their respective bloodlines and unique physiology associated with different elements of nature are incompatible with each other. As for the subordinates from the Legion, they are too low-leveled and weak in terms of rank to handle any of these abilities. Even the aquatic species subordinates are no exception to it. Informed the system in a lifeless voice. Damn it! Looks like I have no choice, said Khan. Suddenly, He pulled the massive blue-colored and spherical heart of the Cthulhu out of his dimensional domain and looked around. He looked at a particular subordinate who was among the two weakest members of their crew. "All right, time to evolve," he said with a confident smile. Thud. One of the generals landed on Cthulhu's corpse and gave an understanding nod to Khan. As anyone with a good memory and at least 2 brain cells would guess, it was Blackwell. Khan started the synthesis divine ability while using the Cthulhu's core and body to merge with Blackwell instead of choosing it to power himself up to make up for the lost levels and become a 4th stage saint instead. Why? Because using your soul essence and sacrificing your levels also made his body unable to level up for a considerable amount of time. While healing Khan, Armin already told him that given his rank and levels, he'd need at least 7 days to make a complete recovery and become able to absorb world energy again. So instead of waiting, he decided to evolve Blackwell, who was the only candidate that fit the bill. Besides, System had already informed Khan about how Blackwell could gather different primordial Titan bloodlines and inherit their powers altogether ever since their time in Verlassen. And now, it was time for the Kronos general who stayed the weakest in the current story arc so far, to gain an immense boost. 9 hours later, the synthesis divine ability took its time and Khan along with the rest of the crew were already at 12 kilometers of distance in the sky as none of them wanted to get blown up because of the aftermath. And finally, boom! An enormously destructive explosion made of a brown and blue aura suddenly erupted and spread across 10 kilometers of open sea, while causing tsunamis and typhoons made of large water bodies and tides as well as clouds made of evaporated water. The sky almost cracked as thunderous noises filled and parted the dark clouds forcefully, while the height of the explosion itself rose whooping 5 kilometers high. The mushroom-shaped explosion finally subsided, but an unnatural phenomenon suddenly occurred that changed the entire terrain. One after another, dozens of solid mountains arose from the deep sea while whirlwinds and storms made of high-pressure water blades encompassed the 5-kilometer radius from the origin. Even from afar, all the onlookers had their clothes fluttering wildly from the shockwaves caused by Blackwell's evolution. A terrifying growl that sent shivers even to Khan, Omega and Rudra suddenly resounded in the 25 kilometers perimeter, sending tremors in the sea while an insurmountable pressure almost made all of them drop into the sea below. "System, what the hell is happening?" asked Khan in surprise. The system detects that because of small traces of the mythical rank metamorphosis bloodline that the host imparted to the subordinate, an unexpected transmutation has occurred, reported the system hurriedly. "How?" queried Khan again. The system detects that although both primordial Titan bloodlines are of the same origin, the superior one obtained from Cthulhu tried to take over the one acquired from the Mountain Titan, as the former was a mythical rank creature, while the latter was only a beginner-level legendary monster. The mythical rank metamorphosis bloodline obtained from the Jatvori monster was suddenly triggered during synthesis, and while acting as a catalyst, it reformed the entire physical structure to perfectly balance both uneven bloodlines, causing this transmutation. Explained the system in detail. An ear-deafening bellow of a monster suddenly resounded in the surrounding at this moment, and finally, Blackwell's unexpectedly transformed figure came into sight amidst the storm and mountains. A titanic 3 kilometers tall humanoid figure filled with red and gray fleshly skin with thousands of massive thorn-like spikes coming out of all the limbs, joints and skin appeared. A massive 300-meter long tail waved behind it while 6 massive spider limb bony extensions came out of the back. At the center of the chest was a large and wide red hole that looked identical to the mouth of an active volcano as scalding red fire arose from it. The entire ribcage of this monstrous being was covered in bone-like exoskeleton armor and had 3 sets of glowing red eyes on each side while being separated by skeletal spikes. So in total, there were 18 eyes. The torso and shoulders were covered under this fleshly and bony armor, providing it the maximum defense, while the clawed arms were so massive and ripped that even a mountain could be excavated in a single swoop. As for the head, the mouth was nothing but a maw made of thousands of sharp and pointy teeth, while the top had 3 large and sturdy horns. However, the eyes were no longer on the head but transferred to the chest. But similar to Cthulhu, dozens of massive fleshly tentacles extended below the mouth, akin to his own beard. Khan saw this new transformed state with a stupefied expression and asked himself, What the hell is this? Isn't he supposed to look like a Titan? Why is he looking more like a combination of Godzilla and Gundam? Although he was aware that the metamorphosis bloodline balanced both primordial Titan bloodlines and caused a transmutation, this new form was still way too out of the norm. Blackwell was now a creature that was even more terrifying than the Mountain Titan and Cthulhu. Even the Elder Hydra, Rudra in his true appearance, would look like cute little snake babies. As for the terrifying and ginormously mountain-like appearance, forget the kids. It will give their parents nightmares. System, show me all the abilities. Commanded Khan. Following are the stats, abilities and skills of the subordinate named Blackwell. Name Blackwell. Species: Kronos, Variant Titan. Job: Abyss Knight, Ancient Rank. Rank: Mythical Rank. Level: 614. Strength: 103,694. Agility: 60,982. Dexterity: 58,910. Defense: 155,899. Mana: 89,741. Following are the skills VA abilities. Titan's Rage, Saint Rank. Marauder King, Saint Rank. Wrath of Vajra, Saint Rank. Titan Descent, Saint Rank. Earth Sense, Saint Rank. Mineral Control, Saint Rank. Transmute Minerals, Saint Rank. Following are the upgraded abilities that the subordinate previously had. Titan Roar, Saint Rank. Active. Allows the subordinate to stun anyone present in a 30-kilometer radius except the host VA fellow subordinates for 240 seconds. Defense Amplifier, Saint Rank. Active. The longer the subordinate defends against an enemy, the more defense will increase in a set amount of time. The subordinates can also grant twice the defense to all the subordinates in a 15 kilometers radius. Health Reserve, Saint Rank. Passive. When health is closer to depletion, allows the subordinate to instantly recover 80% of maximum health. Following are the abilities that have ranked up because of the evolution and newly acquired Titan bloodline. Elemental Invulnerability, Legendary Rank. Terrain Manipulation, Legendary Rank. Following are the newly acquired skills and abilities. Monarch of Water, Legendary Rank. King of the Sea, Legendary Rank. Primordial Titan Immunity, Legendary Rank. Aquatic Resonance, Legendary Rank. Psychokinesis/Telekinesis, Legendary Rank. Water Blades Hurricane, Legendary Rank. Ocean Eddies, Legendary Rank. Instant Regeneration, Legendary Rank. Bloodline, Primordial Titan. Current bloodline purity, 50%. Note: the host is advised to acquire more Primordial Titan bloodlines to evolve General Blackwell, as he now has the highest potential to surpass all god beasts and dragons. Reported the system. Khan relayed this information to all the subordinates, and just like him, they were also too stunned to speak. Blackwell not only became a mythical rank creature, but based on his levels and stats alone, he was now the strongest subordinate among them all. Even if both Omega and Rudra fought him together, they'd be able to do nothing against him based on his bloodline abilities alone. As far as the standards of comparisons went, Blackwell outmatched everyone including Khan, because at this moment he was a 5th stage saint. Blackwell was now comparable to a legitimate 5th stage saint based on levels and stats, while having a total of 10 saint rank skills along with 8 legendary rank skills. This was the highest number of powerful skills than any of the generals Omega and Rudra had. In every aspect, he was far superior to all of them, since other than Khan, nobody else here possessed any skills that could kill him, even if they all banded together during a battle to the death against Blackwell. But things didn't just end here. Master, I have finally acquired one of my own. A monstrously terrifying and domineering voice resounded as if lightning struck the ground. And the very next second, The dozens of tall mountains that arose from the deep sea suddenly during Blackwell's evolution started rumbling, and in the following moments, massive pillars of brown aura erupted and acted as a triggering mechanism for something ominous. Soon, all those pillars rose as high as 10 kilometers, 32,808 feet, in the sky and spread like a spider's web, connecting themselves and forming a 50 kilometers wide radius dome. But things didn't end there. Soon, hundreds of massive and whirling pillars of water arose from the surrounding deep sea and formed waterblade storms in the entire 50 kilometers perimeter, making the whole region inside the dome full of hurricanes, while these pillars exuded a blue visible aura spread and encapsulate everyone's bodies, including Khan. At this moment, everyone felt their bodies experiencing extreme danger as the immense pressure not only froze them on the spot, making them unable to move, but soon their physical strength also underwent huge suppression. All of them instantly understood what was happening. A domain. This entire 50 kilometers radius dome was Blackwell's newly created domain. Even Khan was stupefied because so far only Khan, Oliver, Omega, and Jugram among their group had a domain of their own. And now, Blackwell finally created one of his own after evolving into a mythical rank being. System, give me all the details, ordered Khan. The system conducted an analysis and finally gave a detailed report. Following are the effects of General Blackwell's new domain. Any enemy or hostile entity surrounded by the Abyss Knight General's domain will have all of their physical movements such as agility and dexterity reduced by 30%. All of the physical and armor defense regardless of their rank will be reduced by 50%. Every enemy's health regeneration abilities will lose 40% of their effectiveness inside the Kronos General's domain. General Blackwell can also forcefully extract the enemy's blood, which contains water because of his new abilities obtained from Cthulhu. And due to enemy bodies getting dehydrated, the general can also affect and weaken their consciousness with time. Thousands of stone pebbles and water blades can be controlled by General Blackwell using newly acquired telekinesis skill, and he can target all the enemies inside the domain endlessly to attack from any desired direction at will, as long as there is earth and water available in the 50 kilometers radius. General Blackwell will have absolute control and authority over earth and water elements like a peak sovereign of these two elements. If any creature or enemy also has earth or water elemental affinity or skills, the general is now able to completely control their bodies, making them his puppets inside the domain. Furthermore, inside this domain, General Blackwell's defense and attack stats are multiplied by 500%, 5 times. Additionally, the health regeneration ability is boosted by 2 times. Durability against all elements including darkness and lightning is increased by 50% when the general is using his new domain. As time goes by, the more battle progresses and more enemies killed, General Blackwell will get a 30% increase in all physical stats per hour. Reported the system dropping a bomb. Khan shared this detail with everyone else, and now all of them were simply stupefied and perplexed. Nobody dared to even speak a word, lest they incur the anger of this general. Why? Because he was even stronger than the floor boss aka Cthulhu they barely managed to survive against. Thank goodness, he's my subordinate and not an enemy. If Cthulhu had this domain, forget killing it. All of us would be turned into dry jerky first before we could even attack it, spoke Khan in a dumbfounded tone. Because inside this domain, most of their physical attributes were suppressed and Blackwell himself had an immense boost in attack and defense. Paired with his regeneration abilities and terrain manipulation skill, even a couple of 5th stage saints will have trouble facing him in a head-on battle. The same strategy they used to kill Cthulhu, such as pulling out his heart and throwing it inside the true dimension, would become very difficult to achieve because progressing inside the domain was already extremely hard. They'd be attacked by thousands of stone spears and water blades from unpredictable directions and manners at the same time, and just getting close to Blackwell would be impossible. Only Khan had the ability to do so because he could use the true dimension. As for others, only Ronin could come close to Blackwell in a frontal clash, while the others wouldn't even be able to come close to 5 kilometers before getting their blood sucked out of their bodies. Based on boosts and abilities, Blackwell was already capable of fighting a peak 5th stage saint despite being a beginner. But inside this new domain, He could easily face an intermediate 6th-stage saint by himself without a doubt. And if the fight was a battle of attrition, then the enemy would lose for sure. So simply, Blackwell was now their biggest and strongest fighter, who was akin to an indestructible and impenetrable war fortress. "Master, give it a fitting name," Blackwell requested, yet his voice still sounded overbearing to everyone because of his massive form. Able to control both earth and water at the same time. I know of only one good name that is befitting for this amazing domain. From now on it shall be called the Gaia Domain, declared Khan confidently. "Gaia Domain. I like it," declared Blackwell majestically while exuding a dreary and prideful aura at the same time. Blackwell returned to his humanoid form. This appearance hadn't changed much apart from the previously spread yellow archaic runes all over his body. Now also had dozens of blue glowing runes. Unless he was bare naked, no one would be able to see them, so they did not need to worry about keeping them a secret. "All right, we're all at our peak form now. With all of our legendary armors and weapons equipped as well as Blackwell's new evolution, we are not weaker than the hero of life's party," spoke Khan and declared his intention. "Onto the final floor," he commanded, and their group departed towards the exit door. What they didn't know was that the world would always balance out both gains and losses. Today they achieved a very huge gain. As for the loss, it was just waiting for them. 10 days later. This time, their journey had been much easier and less time-consuming because every floor that came after the 91st floor was either sea-themed related or one of the elements their group excelled in using. In majority of them, Blackwell's new skills played a huge part and saved them all from many life-threatening situations, since he could basically command the terrain and open paths for them at will. As for the 100th floor, there was no access to world energy and had 20 times the normal gravitational force. On top of it, no one could use any of their bloodline abilities or fighting profession skills. But the most peculiar thing was this entire dungeon floor had no ground or sea in it, only white clouds with no end or bottom below. Khan and the group kept falling for 30 minutes. Only then did Oliver somehow forcefully manage to transform into his Thunderbird form and carry everyone on his back. He kept flying in this endless, bottomless, borderless, and unimaginably vast floor for an hour. Luckily, this seemed to be the clearing conditions for this floor, as suddenly, the exit door and a 500-meter-wide steel platform suddenly appeared out of thin air. After landing on the steel platform, they finally regained their ability to use world energy and access to their skills. Although their group was no weaker than the hero's party at this point before they arrived in the Immortal Dungeon. The laws of reality on each floor along with the conditions that needed to be met were always tricky. "Are you guys ready? It's the final floor and we will see the dungeon boss after we enter," said Khan. But after seeing how everyone was already over the edge, he spoke in a thoughtful voice. "If we see something that we can't handle, we will leave quickly. No treasure is worth risking our lives." Others nodded in unison, and soon, all of them started discussing their plans to attack, escape, and plot based on any possible scenario they might face on the final floor. And finally, they entered the 101st floor, aka the final floor. The bright white light faded and 9 figures finally entered from the flashing 100-meter-wide door. Clang! But the very next moment, the door closed loudly and disappeared from the spot. "Man, is that a death flag?" asked Khan to himself. Every time something like this happened, he pretty much died. So Khan could already sense a foreboding of trouble. Bang! Their group's gazes landed on the terrain filled with charred soil, dark and cloudy storms, as well as thousands of massive lightning bolts thundering constantly while destroying the ground below while forming pits of magma. The entire floor was full of thunderstorms, and the 60 kilometers of the radius was more like a hovering island covered under innumerable and ginormous archaic formations that spanned for dozens of kilometers on their own while covering the entire floor like a net made of highly condensed world energy. "Boy, use your passes. This isn't a dungeon floor. It's an arcane prison." Suddenly, Rathnar shouted in Khan's mind and warned haphazardly. Finally, amidst the smoke and massive lightning bolts, a being revealed its existence. 2 massive glowing red eyes with vertical irises in them came out of a fog. Thud! The dungeon boss stood out on its hind legs and its height went as far as 7 kilometers. Although Khan and the group couldn't see its full appearance covered in smoke and lighting from 20 kilometers away, its size was still the biggest they had seen inside this dungeon. Even someone like Cthulhu seemed like a normal average man in front of this being. "Oh hell no! We're leaving," spoke Khan and decided to leave. All the subordinates felt the same emotion. All of them quickly took out their dungeon passes. But just then, "Where do you think you're going?" A ghastly voice resounded, sending tremors in the surroundings, and before anyone could even react, bang! Suddenly, all of their dungeon passes exploded before they could even activate them. With their only way of leaving getting turned into dust, Khan and the group were extremely alarmed and took a defensive stance while activating all of their legendary rank armors and weapons while Khan also activated his own one. "Damn! This can't be happening," cursed Khan his luck. "Boy, we should leave no matter what. Even if hundreds of people like your group fight it together, you can't do anything," spoke the peak saint in his mind. However, the next moment, suddenly, all their bodies were frozen, unable to even bat an eyelid. The grim voice continued in an amused tone. "Oh, how curious. It's a hero of darkness this time. Come here, child. You seem very unique," spoke the dungeon boss and pointed its claw towards them. "Let me decide if I should kill you instantly or torture you to death." As everyone was lifted into the sky and stood like lifeless mannequins, they were pulled by the dungeon boss and stopped only 5 kilometers away in the air. The dungeon boss was so big that even a small grain of sugar would be an overstretch while comparing their heights and size against the dungeon boss. You're different compared to the hero of darkness I used to know. By the way, how come there's another hero of a different god? Is it because I already killed the hero of life? Have the Abyss Empire and Zivit Empire joined hands? The ginormous and terrifying being questioned. "Wait, there is something different about you." But the very next second, his gaze turns furious. "What kind of abomination are you? You shouldn't be existing," he bellowed in rage after detecting multiple bloodlines from Khan's body. The intense pressure exuding from this dungeon boss's body was comparable to a peak 6th stage saint. However, given its majestic aura, all of them were certain that even a 7th stage saint wouldn't be able to face this tyrannical creature. Right at this moment, Rathnar spoke in Khan's mind with absolute dominance. "Boy, let me take control."